You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 522, our breakdown of part 4 of the Ahsoka series, an episode that was entitled Fallen Jedi, and a name that takes on a number of different meanings that we'll get into in this episode. But honestly, for me, this had to be one of the best, if not the best. I don't know yet. It's still early, but one of the best Star Wars television episodes we've ever had, quite honestly. And I mean that. It's right up there with a lot of the stuff that we saw in Rebels. I put it up there with some of the best that the movies have brought us. And it's all thanks to a little man by the name of Dave Filoni. And then to kind of cap it all off, we get the appearance of a well-known, well-loved character that has set the internet on fire. I mean, it's all anybody's talking about. And we're going to do our fair share here tonight. And speaking of returns of beloved characters or people that we love, Jonesy's with us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad it was better than your fair share. Here's my fair share, Jonesy. Doesn't make any sense, but still, it's been great.
Yeah.
Man, you hit on the head on, man. This was a fantastic episode, and I'm with you. I think this is one of the... Man, we thought Andor was giving us some of the best Star Wars. This is a different flavor, but still, some of the best Star Wars I think we've had in a long time. It really makes it... This recalls, like, when Rogue One came out. The last, 45 minutes to an hour of Rogue One, to me, was, the best Star Wars we'd had, and it felt like ages. And we've had a lot of great Star Wars, but it was really recalling those types of feelings for me. So it was really exciting. So this is going to be a great episode tonight.
Yeah. No, and there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to do our best to get through all of this. Again, this is probably going to be one of our longer shows, so just, people are saying they're excited to be here tonight. Well, let's see where you are in about 2 hours by the time we get to the end of this one. But no, we are going to try to get through everything. There's a lot to discuss here, and just kind of tease what we've got coming up here this weekend. We are going to talk about the very ending, which, again, spoiler alert, hopefully you've seen the episode by now. If not, it's your fault. But we are going to talk a little bit about Anakin's appearance and what that possibly could mean. And I say Anakin maybe in quotes, right? We're going to get into some of that, but I am saving a lot of that heavy theory, speculation, debate, discussion for Sunday's Patreon show. So if you're not a member of our Patreon community, you can head out to cantinacast.com/Patreon. I think at $2 you can pretty much get the show. But we are going to table a lot of that heavier discussion, the thicker discussion for that Sunday night show. So that'll be Sunday at 9 p.m. So please join us for that, because I think that's really where the juice of this is, the meat of this episode. And there's a lot that's coming up too, right? When we get to episode 5 or part 5, seems to be it's going to be pretty heavy there as well. So I think it's going to be fun to speculate on and get a lot of stuff wrong, quite honestly, but that's half the fun. But before we go any further, I know you've got some shout outs and things, some people that you want to thank.
Yeah, a little housekeeping first. So again, Danny's in the chat with us. And again, welcome Danny to Patreon. Thank you for being our latest member. If you're curious about Patreon, cantinacast.com/Patreon. Like Albert was saying, if you want audio only, it starts at $2. If you want to join us on the live streams for Patreon only, it starts at $5 a month. So go check those out. We do want to give a special thank you to our now part of the tribe members: Rob, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Rist, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Rita Reborn, and our Delusions Grange members, Rod, CJ, Alex, and Steve C. Certainly appreciate everybody. Again, cantinacast.com/Patreon if you are curious about that. If you're listening to this, thanks for the download. And we'd like to have you join us on the live stream, like all of these amazing people so far tonight. Music Train, Alex, Alexandra, My Star Wars Guy, Jack, Sky, Aaron, Danny, Qui-Gon Jay, Gary, Jorge, 80s Kids from the 90s. Miss Sunflower just snuck in there at the very end, too. cantinacast.com/YouTube. We'd love for you to come out and join us. If you have not subscribed to the channel, we'd love if you subscribed. And if you feel like what you're having or like what you're getting, give us a like. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We love having you on board.
Yeah. And keep it. Yeah, that's a lot. Good job. Keep up with the reviews, too. I mean, positive or negative or indifferent, however you'd like. If you want to leave us a review on Apple iTunes or even Spotify, we definitely would appreciate that. We do read those on the air from time to time. And then I just want to quickly give a shout out to Rural Farm Boy, who is one of our most devout followers on Twitter. He's constantly liking everything, reposting things, getting the message out there. A dude listens to like, I don't know, it must be like 800 podcasts a week at least, at a minimum.
So much, yeah.
So I don't, he's probably got a mail route or he's sitting somewhere where he's just consuming all this content. But anyways, I just want to say thank you. I meant to give you a shout out last time and I didn't get a chance, but thank you for putting in the Lord's work by constantly retweeting and keeping us out there at the forefront of everybody. So thank you so much.
Invader's Girl just joined us. So hi, Kat.
Kat,
Glad that she's able to join us. Yeah, long
Awesome.
time, one of the OGs, as Mike used to like to say. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it. We'll see you guys here. No, that joke gets old after a while. All right, let's get into, I want to get your initial thoughts. And I know I've already kind of broken the seal. I'm kind of excited to talk about this one. There was so much that was working, so many things that went really well. So much of it felt like Star Wars. I know that's probably cliche at this point, because I think we've said many times on this show that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people now.
Right.
But when you talk about kind of stripping everything away, getting down to the core elements of what makes Star Wars, this was kind of seeped in it. And a lot of it is credit to Dave Filoni, and we don't need to get into the whole history there. I think we all know the reasons why, but evident in this episode in large spades of sheer George Lucas and lots of fun. And so credit goes to Dave Filoni. Credit goes to Ramsey. Is it Peter Ramsey?
Yeah, Peter Ramsey. Really.
For his direction.
Man, this episode was beautifully shot. Yeah.
There was, moments that were like of cinematic quality, right? In terms of the shots.
Yeah, and the camera and the effects he was doing and using the dynamic lens and the range of it all.
Yes.
It's just absolutely stunning. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was, and not to say the other episodes have been pedestrian by any means or anything like that. It's just
absolutely not. Yeah.
This felt like it was another level. It felt on par with some of the stuff that we were seeing Gilroy do in Andor. Some of the stuff, the cinematic stuff that we've got from the movies, but just so many great things about the art direction about this one. But so I'll kind of hush up for a little bit here. I want to get your thoughts on what was working for you and just kind of what you thought overall about the episode.
One thing we haven't talked about at all with this series, but I thought about it throughout this because I noticed it for the very first time, but it was so subtle that you probably wouldn't notice it, is the volume. And we had talked going into the series, we weren't sure if the volume was going to be, we knew they were going to use it probably pretty heavily, and we weren't really sure how we were going to feel about that or how they were going to do it, because Obi-Wan Kenobi left us a little jaded with it, I think, based on the circumstances there. We've seen it work really well, but maybe not as well in Mandalorian sometimes. Yeah. And even in Ahsoka, some things worked really well. Others kind of felt claustrophobic. I got to tell you, though, even when I noticed it here, it was very subtle, and it was almost like I was thinking about it for some reason and just happened to notice it. Other than that, it has been so seamless. There's a little bit of depth stuff going on at times. I think with the forest, maybe you notice some of that. Yeah. Maybe some of the mat and the hanger, kind of the mat work, if you will, like when we saw the ghost. But overall, man, you are not thinking about it at all. And I think that's a testament to the directors and just the cinematography that they've got. I know Filoni probably, storyboards all this stuff out and drawings and whatnot too, which we're going to come back to later because there were a lot of parallels with what we've seen in other content. But that we're not talking about the volume and that it's just so seamless with it to kind of tack on to your cinematography comment just a minute ago. Shout out to everybody that is making this show, because it is so embedded in what we're doing and we just don't even realize it. And I think that's also a testament to the actors and everybody else bringing this to life, is that we are just getting a total immersion into the show, the characters, the writing, the things that's making our heads spin. And so really kudos to them that it's just working so well with it all.
Yeah, no, I second all of it. It was great beginning to end. There was thematically, there were a couple of things that I really thought were working for this episode, and kind of really excited to see, and specifically around the revisiting the idea of attachment, right? That kind of played front and center here. There was literally a mention of the greater good. And when you think about Ahsoka's journey and Thrawn and what they're going for, and even like,
that's that red book. That's that red book right there, by the way.
Right.
Lesser evil and then greater good rebel. Yeah.
Yeah. But just even on the surface, right? So like Ahsoka, Thrawn, and Baylan, they're all working towards what they think is the greater good. We get examples of this coming from Ahsoka as she's having her conversation with Sabine. We get, again, a literal echo of this phrase, the greater good, from Baylan's skull. And of course we know, or at least we presume we know kind of where Thrawn's coming from and what that means. And so I just love this idea that this is kind of, they're all working in parallel. They're all kind of trying to accomplish the same thing, going about it in very different ways. Acting wise, I thought everybody was just killing it beginning to end. Natasha Bordizzo during that scene where Balin is trying to get her to hand over the map. I mean, she does so much with, just her facial expressions. And I mean, I was at the edge of my seat through all of that scene because I was thinking, holy crap, is she going to do it? Is she going to do it? Is she going to do it? But, there's a lot of time that's just sitting there holding on them. And it's really, you're watching the very slow movements of the hand and then the fingers and coming together and then her facial expressions. And I mean, it's just really gripping and captivating for that segment of all of about 10 seconds, 15 seconds it feels like it's 10 minutes, that whole scene.
In the best possible way. And you're right. We've talked a lot about pacing with this show and maybe a little in a more critical fashion. I think with this episode, and we've seen this a couple of different times where it's been really good and really on point, where you linger long, but you linger long enough, right? And it's really important that you do that so that you don't lose the momentum. Like you were saying, Sabine's reactions, the subtle movements of her lips, the doubt, the question she has, is Balin getting through to her? It allows you to build that tension. That was one of the things that this episode really did, was that it really built upon itself, and you really finally got a true building of tension almost through this entire episode. And Gary has it in the comments here, that this episode really demonstrated something that he believes Lucasfilm has been missing, and that's flow. And I think that's a really great way of putting it too, because it's synonymous with that pacing of saying that you continue moving forward, but you're not rushing through it. You're not staying on a shot too long to where it feels uncomfortable, like unnecessarily uncomfortable. At least you're not intending for it. Yeah. But everything is very deliberate and it's very intentional in order to really build that tension. And you actually feel yourself moving forward in your seat as you go through this episode, which I think just tells you how good it is. And when you talk about sound design and all the other sounds, the Purrgil sounds, the Night Sister-ish type of sounds, and the whispers and things like that, when you really get that going, it is like total immersion into what you're seeing visually on the screen. And it feels like Star Wars when you have that total environment with the music and everything else. That's what Star Wars really is for us, right? Is that total experience where everything just seems to somehow fit together and work in this weird and wild galaxy thing that we like so much. And it finally comes together. And I think the show so far at the pinnacle of what we've expected is this episode, today, which again, we would kind of expect. We're at the midway point. We're expecting to be able to get to that kind of mid-season climax, if you will, before we really start the final build. But man, they really delivered on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got three other things just quickly. I loved
only three of them? Okay.
Only three things, then we're done. All the lightsaber combat scenes, the choreography was great throughout. There was lots of it, which was like, wow, it was very, thick there in terms of what we've gotten in some of the more previous episodes. It felt lighter in other ones. This one felt very heavy. There was a lot of overlapping of the scenes, and I think this is kind of what Gary was talking about, and you were talking about the flow, right? The overlapping, the pacing of that stuff. We had kind of the Star Wars recipe of multiple fronts kind of happening all at the same time, which really kind of culminates in kind of one big final action moment. And we got all of that in this episode.
You're right. We finally got back to three things going at the same time. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yep. And so here's the only thing that I've got. So, I'm watching this and I'm like totally taking it all in, absolutely absorbed, enthralled, cheering, from the rooftops. But then I started thinking, you get to the very end there. And I don't know. I honestly, sincerely don't know the answer to this question. And maybe people that are with us tonight live can chime in, or you guys have your own anecdotal experience. But for people that have not seen Clone Wars, or people that did not watch Rebels, and they're coming into this series, you get to that ending. And I got to think you've got to be scratching your head going, what in the Sam, has just happened here? Because, right. We're kind of
4
foggy.
Weirdness, baby. We're back.
Exactly. We're right back into the weirdness of Dave Filoni, which we love. Well, I think I love it more than you, but...
No, stop saying that. I do love it.
All right.
God, you gave me a bad name on Sunday, too. Jeez.
All right. So he loves it. So we both love it equally, guys, okay? But we're getting into the weirdness, and I just wonder for like the everyday, everyman Star Wars fan, are they like... What are they thinking when they see this series, especially at the end? Like, that's got to be just completely mind, what? So I don't know.
I agree with you. I think some people are going to be like, whoa, what? But I think it's also going to be, they can get there. I think you can get there without knowing all the Rebels in the Clone Wars stuff, because we do know about Force spirits, Force ghosts, whatever you'd like to call them. We know that that's a thing. Now, we've not seen them manifest themselves in more realistic form, But I like what they did. They not only is the de-aging was weird. His face was weird. Just going to say it. But not only is it kind of this weird environment, though, so it's special in that regard. He's not in a corporeal form. But you also have that ominous music at the very end with Anakin to where you start to doubt of whether or not you believe your eyes. So it's kind of like a Gandalf Lord of the Rings moment where you're just like, where have I transcended to? And what the heck does this mean? And it's such a great cliffhanger for an episode to where I think when you want people to go talk, we've talked about this before about water cooler talk is kind of back, right?
Yeah,
Tuesday nights, go in Wednesday, talk to the people at work or whatever it might be. Hey, did you watch Ahsoka? You're reaching out to your friends. It's early enough you can actually have these conversations at night now. You don't have to wake me up in the middle of the night and tell me to call in dead. All of these things we can actually do. And you talk about building momentum, especially at the midway point when you really want to start hitting that stride with your viewership. Man, you really can't ask for more. And I think this is where the weirdness pays off of saying, wow, that's really captured my imagination. Because not only did they bring someone back, or they give me this weird thing, but then they brought Anakin Skywalker back and Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. And what the hell is that actually going to translate into now? I got to tune into episode 5 and figure out how this actually translates, because I love The Revenge of the Sith. I haven't watched Star Wars since 2005, but I hear Anakin's in it, now I'm back. So I think that's the word of mouth thing that we want. And so water cooler talk is back, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't considered that. It if nothing else, right, it is going to get people talking, and I would imagine you're probably hooked. Like, I can't see why you'd be like, nah, this is not for me. You know what I mean?
How can you not come back to see how it resolves? Unless you just don't care, unless you just don't care about the character, or you don't like, something in general. Yeah. How could you not come back just to see what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like lightsaber adverse, and you're like, no, this is too much. I can't deal with it all.
If you're not, I'm going to call your mom and I'm going to tell you to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make phone calls, people.
Before we start stepping through this, let me go to the comments real quick. Miss Sunflower says somehow Anakin has returned. So
yeah, we made a lot of jokes about that one too.
Yeah. Alex says creepy Anakin stare. Yeah, we'll get into his look. I think that set off a number of people, and it's
I want to talk about his lightsaber actually.
A lot of people talking. Yeah. Okay, we'll save it. Skywalker Academy says, what a cliffhanger. Yeah. And said also the title of Fallen Jedi, Ahsoka falling off the cliff. We were watching this that night, I think it was, as a matter of fact. Jonesy, myself, a couple other folks together, and we made that comment of like, oh, that's why it's called the Fallen Jedi. She fell off the dang cliff.
I think I came up with like 7 or 8 different things that you could have equated to Fallen Jedi in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's Balin, it's Anakin, it's
some
Ahsoka,
are obvious, and some are
Sabine.
Right. Yeah. There's just so many different things you could do.
And that's what we love. I mean, we talk about a lot about this. I think we highlighted it quite a bit on our shows, just the multiple meanings, especially in The Mandalorian. Favreau's doing a lot of that on purpose. And so it's just a big carryover, which I do enjoy. So.
Yeah, and you talk about the cliffhanger just real quickly. With Miss Sunflower says, of course, they're doing the theaters for episode 5 at some of the AMCs, but unfortunately, not one near you and me, at least as of right now.
Dallas is the closest for us.
Up in Dallas, yeah.
And
that's probably because all the ones around here are pretty nasty. But if it happens, I mean, if you can get a ticket, go. I think, why would they? I mean, it's kind of an interesting idea of why they're doing this, but I think to go experience it in IMAX or in the theater, man, don't delay. If you see it, buy it, go.
Yeah. And for anybody that's not aware of what we're talking about, they are going to be showing part 5 at select AMC theaters. And by select, I mean, you think about as many AMC theaters are in the nation.
8 or 10, or it's a handful. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably like 12 or 13, but it's not many, like, ratio wise. This is a small percentage, and most of them they were all sold out almost immediately, and you can get on a waiting list, I think. So I think for what I'm hearing is they may open up additional theaters or screenings for these. I don't know about theaters, but it sounds like they may open up additional screenings. So, So what Jonesy's saying is, if you have the opportunity, get out there and watch it, because we don't get to do this very often. And I would think some of this is because of the writer's strike, right? They don't have the normal publicity kind of streamlines that they would to promote and market this. And so this is a way to get people out to the movie theater, get them talking, get them posting. It's just, they're trying to build up hype in other ways that are available to them, which some they just don't have right now because of the strikes. So definitely understand what they're trying to do there. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's get into the actual story here. Let's get into the breakdown. We're going to step through a lot of the stuff. And let's start with, we're back on Cetos. Hugh Yang's trying to get everything back together, put it all back together. And he's basically fixing everything for lack of a term. But we get this moment, I guess, between Ahsoka and Sabine, and there's a lot of foreshadowing that's already happening here, right? They're already signaling that we're going to see this, the call to question of whether she's not loyal, where she's loyal, where her loyalties lie. Does Sabine see the greater picture, or is she too focused in on Ezra? And you and I have speculated that maybe some of the rift that they're experiencing now or have experienced in the past may have been exactly this, right? They're revisiting some of that same territory here. And so when you look at Ahsoka, she seems very concerned about this. It almost feels like she's either had a vision, she can sense something in the Force, or it could just be because they've been in similar situations before, and maybe nothing to the extent of what we see here, but there may have been, decisions made by Sabine that were in the interest of Ezra and not for the greater good or for the larger, mission at hand. But I guess your kind of thoughts on how all this played out and the foreshadowing that was going on here.
Yeah, I really sat, when I was watching this again before it came on air, I really sat and watched Ahsoka in those moments, especially when she was by herself. And I really do wonder if she did have some sort of Force premonition or Force vision, a bit of a foresight of her future, of what was going to happen, or at least some of the possible avenues of what was going to happen on Cetos when she finally engaged with Balin and in that fight and what that was going to be. And it was cloudy. It was unforeseeable about which path Sabine was going to take. And we later find out, again, more context as to maybe why Ahsoka was questioning, I wouldn't say her loyalty, but just her ability to make the right call, because we later find out that the majority of the rift is probably because of what happened to Sabine's family, presumably during a night of a thousand tears, right? And that was kind of a bombshell, right? I mean, that came out of nowhere and was unexpected in that regard. So that lack of trust maybe from Sabine, or that not lack of trust, but lack of trust on Ahsoka to Sabine, but the willingness to grab onto any kind of family that Sabine has left is going to give Ahsoka pause about whether or not Sabine is capable of making that really hard choice, right? And Sabine's kind of flippant with the response to her too, of, can I count on you? Of course you can count on me. It was almost like a immediate, response of like, well, of course, like, why would you even ask that question? That's kind of stupid, right? But again, you feel all of that throughout the episode. As you learn more, you finally make sense why Ahsoka wouldn't be so sure. And if she's already seen what that potential future might be, or that murkiness, then she's got to at least try to get Sabine to understand that she needs to make the tough call, even though she might not want to. It's the right call to make. And you actually, when we were watching it live, you had a really good observation later on that why Sabine actually made that choice, that I'm sure we'll come back and talk to when we get to the end of the episode.
Yeah, I took the social media on that. It got pretty hot, thankfully. But so hopefully I'm right. But we'll get to that here a little bit later, because again, they're kind of seeding some of those things in this scene. So
there was a lot of signaling in this episode across it. I mean, basically, I mean, if we've learned one thing, is when they tell you something's going to happen or they kind of hint at it, man, you've got like a 9 times out of 10 chance it's going to happen, it seems.
Right. So we cut over to, I guess, what I'm calling the map area, and this is where Balin and Morgan are talking about, the guards, and they make the comment about, the guards aren't going to slow them down, right? They're trying to prevent them from coming over because they got to start the map up, upload the coordinates or download the coordinates or whatever is going on there with that funky map room thing. And, Balin sends out Merrick and Shin and says, but you will be able to slow them down. I'm thinking, okay, here we go. We're going to get, some good lightsaber comment, and we're going to get to that here in just a second. But I would love the fact when Shin leaves, if you watch it for a split second, they both look pretty happy. They look like Dad just said, go ahead, you can go grab something off the shelf there at the counter or whatever, and I'll pay for it, kind of thing. But they turn and they run off. And as Shin turns, she's looking at Dad, kind of smiling. She looks happy. And then her eyes shift over to Morgan, and she's got the most cold, staring, like, not you, kind of screw you kind of look on her face. So again, I'm just saying there's something going on there. Like, that is going to brew, and it's going to erupt at some point. But they head off.
Well,
and then
was that the only one at the very end of the episode when Morgan Elsbeth looks over when Sabine and Shin walk in, and she looks at them thinking that, oh my gosh, now there's 2 of them?
Yeah. I was thinking that, or like, what are you doing here? Who brought her on board?
Like, really? We had one. We didn't need another one.
Yeah. This is not what I planned. But then they have this quick exchange where she says, "Is that a note of fear in your voice?" So this is Morgan talking to Baylan. He says, "Experience," and I think it's probably a bit of both. I think
it's realism. It's realism. I think
it's all kind of coming to head, right? And we've talked a little bit already about what Baylan, he can definitely foresee the future. Maybe not to the extent of some of the greats out there, but this may be things that he's all kind of already seen happen, and it's all kind of coming to head. Like he knows, oh, yep, this is it. Where it's, in moments, this is where I'm going to be fighting her, and so it's not fear, but it is. I think it's like what he's saying is right. It's experience. He knows what's coming. Yeah, he knows that this is probably the start of a lot more. It's not just this one fight. Whereas Morgan's coming from it as in this is again all fate. And this is just a small step in the right direction that we have to contend with. But I think they've got two different pictures here in terms of what they're looking at and what they're anticipating is going to happen once these motions get set underway.
Right. And Sidious probably said it best. I think this probably summarizes Baylan's experience when he says experience. Sidious said the Jedi are relentless, right? And I can't remember exactly which show that was in, but he's 100% true. The Jedi in general, they just keep coming. They don't know when to stop. They won't stop. They are driven by their innate desire to do whatever it is they're set out to do, right? So he knows that is the case, and they won't give up, and they will make the decisions that other people generally will not make, or that would be more self-centered. The Jedi won't do it, and they are a significant risk, and he knows how difficult that will be. And again, we still sense, even when he's fighting Ahsoka, and he comes back and says it didn't have to be this way. It's a curious comment, but within the context of everything else he had said, right? He was kind of trying to rile her up, but just that context, though, between him and Morgan, I continue to like that dynamic, though, where she is still kind of prodding him a little bit. She seems to trust him, pretty much explicitly without really any kind of concern.
I think so, yeah.
She knows his loyalty is there, I think, at the very least, right? Or at least as long as she's paying him. There doesn't seem to be any concern about loyalty in any kind of way. But so I like that there's not that doubt between them. But she does like to needle at him a little bit that he's a big softy kind of thing. And I don't know if it's really it or if he's just a realist, I think, in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Alexander said Shin and Morgan are fantastic in their interactions, verbal and nonverbal. And Gary
they just want to like spit at each other every single time. It's fantastic.
Yep. Gary says the dogma of the Jedi was their undoing. Yeah. And I got a theory on that we'll get to here with when we get to Baylan and Ahsoka's conversation. And because I think we finally got some, we're not in the clear. Like we don't exactly know what he's going to do, but we're starting to get some little teasers about where this possibly could be going. So we go back to more on Ahsoka's concerns, right? She's worried about, Sabine and what Ezra means to her. She makes a comment, and we heard this, I think, in one of the trailers, or it was in one of the TV spots about sometimes we have to do what's right regardless of our personal feelings. We had anticipated this was her talking to Sabine, and that was the most likely person. And when Sabine questions Ahsoka, she says, I have to. She has to think about the greater good. Again, going back to that theme of the greater good, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few kind of thing, to echo Star Trek, if you want to do that. I know that's probably crossing the streams, but so what? So, I totally get it, but I think this also speaks to where we see Ahsoka right now. She's living on the ship. She's all by herself. She's, all in gray, not living her best life by any means. She's trying to do what's best for the entire galaxy, at least what she thinks is best for her in the galaxy. She's devoid of attachment. So, there's some things that I totally get are noble. They certainly work within the character of Ahsoka, but at the same time, if I were Ahsoka, and not to jump ahead, but and this is what I posted, one of the things I posted on social media as soon as the episode premiered is, I don't see how anybody could have thought Sabine would have not done this, especially somebody like Ahsoka. Especially if we're right that she'd already been burned by her at some point, or they already went down this path, and Sabine leaned into her feelings more than the mission at hand, the greater good, then the precedent was already there. But let's not put that aside. Knowing what we know about Sabine, knowing about her dedication to Ezra, that's her family. And this is even before I even consider that they may have been lost in the Night of 1,000 Tears. I just can't see somebody like Sabine saying, no, you're right, I'm going to stick to it. I think that's what Ezra was trying to do. But we did kind of talk about, he probably had an out. Like he probably thought, oh, I can do this. I'm still going to live kind of thing because of his force vision or whatever. But for Sabine, I just don't see it. And I was surprised that Ahsoka really thought that this, was going to happen. So I don't know.
Well,
You want to add anything to that there?
Yeah, I mean, they're both still trying to be different, right? So they're both still trying to meet each other in the middle and figure out that next step for them. I think with Ahsoka, I think you were on the right path though with her. I think a lot of it for her is that she is everything that she has done and sacrificed and given up and not allowed herself to be attached to anybody has to have a meaning and has to have a purpose at the end of the day. It all has to pay off in some way. And I think for her, she believes that is the preventing of Thrawn as resuming the mantle of heirs to the Empire, right? I'm going to say it. I'm not going to let you say it. So that's the one thing that would make all of everything that she's gone through the last many, many years, and even the redemption of Anakin in some kind of ways, and the redemption of her behavior that she blamed herself potentially for Anakin as well, too. I think it all has to mean something. And I think so when she's saying these things, I like that she was vulnerable in that kind of way where she says, when the stakes are this high, I have to believe that that's the right thing to do, right? I have to be able to do that because otherwise it's just so easy to give in to the rest of it and to go right back into yourself. But that's what she can't allow that to happen because the consequences, not only for the galaxy, but really for her own, for everything that she's lived for, really do all go by the wayside and probably just devastate her to a completely irreparable state.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good point. So we'll come back to this. We're going to revisit a lot of this same thought and stuff here in just a bit, but we get the attack on the shuttle here. And we got to Hu Yang in full combat action. I was thinking, for a guy that's, thousands of years old, he did pretty good putting up a fight. I know a lot of people have been talking about the Rock'em Sock'em robots. I saw that today. Somebody's already made some memes on that. It did feel like that, but I was happy, honestly, that he went toe to toe with an HK droid because I didn't know he had it in him, quite honestly. Yes, he's got the lightsabers and he can train, but this dude's really, really old. So
and he's really like an architect droid or something like that, right?
He's not like
he's
first-hand combat kind of.
Yeah, he's kind of like the professor of almost. So we don't expect him to have a whole lot of moves, but you're right, he did hold his own, and I think the only thing that lacked kind of eroded his credibility was when he just started shouting for help. It's like, come on, man.
So he was shouting for help, and then, like in true Star Wars form, the other robotic droid puts his robot hand on his robot's mouth and muffles his mouth, which I was like, is that how it works? But I think it does. It's fine. It's Star Wars, and we love it. Quickly,
so the one saving grace out there though was that he did, like, later on when he was trying to. I was like, man, doesn't he just have? I mean, don't droids just be able to communicate without a communicator? But he did had to have a communicator when he's reaching out to him in the later scenes when he's just calling out for everybody and no one's answering. Yeah. So at least I forgave him at the end of the episode. So.
Yep. Yeah. There's Aaron said, reminded me of Real Steel, which is the Hugh Jackman movie. Was in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same kind of thing. Hard counters with us tonight. Welcome, sir. Finally. Thanks for showing up. We're 30 minutes in now. Okay. So this whole first battle was great because I think it proved one point, right? It proved that together they're better. And we were talking about this, I think, in what I would call the after show as well. We were joking about how, there's lessons learned already. You think about Kenobi and Anakin and, their first fight with Dooku versus their second fight. We're going to do this together.
Really didn't end that much better, but yeah.
It's true. I guess in all things considered, it probably didn't. But the spirit was there, right? They're better together. When the Padawan and the Master stay together and they fight together, there's a better chance of living. And we got to see that here, at least in this. And now, granted, these were the thugs. These are the low guys. They weren't really challenging, but we got to see everything. We had lightsabers. There was a lot of rolling around, blasters firing. We even got the fiber cord.
Using the Force to, drag people over. You're right. Yeah. The ripcord. Right in the lightsaber and everything. Let me ask you a question, though. Sorry to interrupt you here, but
yeah, no, go ahead.
I've seen some people speculating that Ahsoka started, tapping into the dark side here, or even later in the episode. Do you really feel like she did any kind of dark side touching throughout the whole episode? And if you want to wait to go to wait till we talk to the end for a little bit, that's fine too. But I never got that feeling in the scene because Jedi are warriors, whether we like it or not. At least these Jedi are warriors. And I just view her because I think one thing is she was stabbing one behind her, like in the face, when the other one, she's like dragging with the Force in front of the one that was shooting at Sabine.
Yeah.
And so I don't really view that as dark side. I think she was just kind of taking care of business almost.
So
maybe maybe that's my OT way of thinking, the prequel trilogy way of thinking. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think I probably am more on the side of no, there were no necessarily dark side forces being exhibited here. Like, I can see where people make arguments though, because she hurls Shin at that rock at the end. Yeah. But I think this is not to get like we're getting into law now. I think it goes back to intent. Like, what was she trying to do? I don't think she had an intent to kill Shin in that moment. I think she was just trying to incapacitate her.
Exactly.
So
I've seen some people say that she was force choking her too, and I did not see that.
No, I didn't see that. No.
Okay. Yeah,
Come on, let's not get carried away.
Well, that's the thing. I just want to make sure I wasn't insane or anything, because that's also people like, no, she force choked her and then threw her. I was like, I don't see that at all, guys.
Yeah, I didn't see her force choking. And I'll go back and watch it again, but I think that would have been a little bit more on the nose. I think he would have signaled that she was doing that rather than making it subtle like that. Right. And even if she did, all right, let's just say for the sake of argument, even if she did do that, or even if she did kind of dip her toes into the dark side of things, I mean, Luke did it too. And we've probably got other examples. Look at what Ezra did. He was doing some crazy, not so cool stuff at the, in season 4 of Rebels. So it's not, it just depends on what they were trying to do. And I think it depends on how much they're leaning on it and what their true intent was. I don't think Ahsoka's there. I don't think she is the bright light, the beacon of hope that we all think she has been, or she has been for so many years. But I don't think she's crossed over where she's, gone into some really evil, dark Sith kind of tactics. I think we'd see a different kind of Ahsoka. I think we would see that presence of the dark side consuming her, taking over her in other subtle ways, whether it's physical or other, how she communicates with people, how she interacts with folks. We're just not getting any signs of that. So I think whatever she's doing, she's probably on the safe side. Is she kind of teetering on it? Yeah, maybe. I can see it, but I wouldn't put too much stock into that. I think she's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going crazy, because I just wasn't seeing it at all. So
yeah.
All right, cool.
I don't know where we were anymore. Oh, yeah, so they have the big battle, and they do work well together. I thought we got Ahsoka smiling, which was awesome to see. I really enjoyed it.
It's always
I was smiling.
He brings out the best in everybody.
He does. He really does. But the whole thing about stay together, you always did better that way, in my opinion. And then they get the smiles and the I think it was
later.
Sabine, does a little curtsy, and I thought that was a great moment. It's so subtle, and it really doesn't really amount to a whole lot, but for that,
they quickly
ignored
2
minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes of that whole segment, they worked really well together. They ran off together. They were happy, and of course things go south from there. But
right. Things change.
Yep. That's such as the way in Star Wars. Okay, now this whole next segment is like just Albert kind of inspirational stuff, right? Everything from the way the music started, because this is what we cut over now. We're going to get to the ghost. Let's just be honest. The elephant in the room. The ghost finally freaking showed up, and man, did it show up. Syndulla's coming out. We get, they made the call to her. She's kind of going against the grain, pulling rank, saying, I'm not sticking around here. I'm going to go save my friends. Very typical Star Wars stuff. This is what you would expect from somebody like Hera Syndulla as well, for the same reason that Sabine would do it for Ezra, right? You got to understand the family dynamic here that's at play. And if you don't, well, go watch Rebels. But, and then like, even before we get into that, there was that total mom moment where she's like, 1 year old, when you're older, you can, be a general and disregard orders or whatever. But for now, buckle up, dude. Like, you're putting your seatbelt on. I mean, that was just like,
I'm pretty sure Chopper said, because she's the mom.
That's what it sounded like, right? But I don't know, everything about that. And then it finally, cuts over to the music. It starts kind of ramping up. We get to see the ghost lifting off. When that thing comes around, and you can't really see it I can't see it on any version that I have of my computers, or maybe on my MacBook I can, but definitely on my TV. That little halo that's on the back of the ghost when it
you get a really big pink lens flare, but it's like huge. It's almost like it's elliptical almost around the entire screen, just really faint for just a moment, but it's absolutely stunning. Yeah,
I teared up. I was like, I was waiting for this moment, honestly, to see that ship take off. And on top of that, just quickly, the HasLab was fully funded, so we've got all 4 characters. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty exciting. Good Lord. That was the best investment I've made in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, so this is, all this was great stuff. And then, okay, so, and I'm going to let you talk here, but I need to get through this, right? Get it out.
You promise? Okay.
When they started showing the X-Wings and, we're getting round table and I'm like in the feverish kind of pitch at this point with everything that's going on. And I thought, holy bananas, they're going to rotate around. And of course, then Carson Tevez, I wasn't expecting that. I think we had speculated that this is probably how he would be a part of this if he did come into the series.
Exactly how we anticipated it, yeah.
Which is exactly what it was, which is great. And
we thought we were going to get Zeb. We thought we were going to get him.
I'm thinking X-Wings, Carson's here. They were showing it. I saw the Rodian, I don't care. Showed the other guy. Who the hell is that guy? And then, he wasn't there. So, again, disappointing, yes, but still all very exciting stuff. I mean, if you're a Rebels fan,
still possible.
It's still possible. But if you're a Rebels fan, I mean, watching that ship, the Ghost take off, and then getting the cherry on the top was seeing Jason being able to pull that lever and head off into hyperspace. So I don't know. It was just good stuff, man. I really enjoyed that quite a bit. But what did you think about all of that?
Well, it was such a great scene with, like, when you compare it with Rebels, and it's not the best. It was one of Hera's best moments, unfortunately, in Rebels, when she leads the squad of X-Wings against Thrawn, and it's the green group, right? And so it was very reminiscent of that, of bringing Phoenix Squadron back together. Getting called Phoenix Leader was really cool. It was exciting to see Carson Tevez, because we kind of knew he's kind of a thread throughout all of these series, right, in some kind of way. He's the New Republic thread, if you will, until we had Hera come in. So it was really cool to be able to see him that. And he's actually getting that vindication that the things that we've seen for a few years now are all coming to light, and he just feels vindicated, and he feels like he's able to go and be on the front lines for it. And of course he would be there, because he knew something's been brewing for a very long time. So that he has that relationship with Hera, not surprising, but really cool that we kind of called that one, even though it's a bit obvious, calling in the ones you can trust, rally the troops that are around you. We're still going to get Zeb. Have faith, my friend. It's going to happen.
Okay. You heard it here first. Yeah, I forgot the on your signal, Phoenix Leader. That was like, oh, chill. I got chills just now, just thinking about it. But yeah.
Right. And of course, and we talked about this before we came on air, but Brendan Wayne was one of the fighter pilots, or one of the X-Wing pilots. He's the gentleman with the more slender face. Of course, he is the grandson of John Wayne, a legendary Western actor, and also one of the stunt doubles for Din Djarin in The Mandalorian. So
yeah,
pretty exciting that he got a little FaceTime.
Now, did he bite it though at the end?
We don't know. So him and the other female pilot, where like one of those two survived, but the other one didn't. But it's not clear who. Carson Teva survived, but only one of those two did. The Rodian died, and then the other pilot passed away too, or crashed. Got exploded, got blowed up.
There's so many Rodians in the galaxy. What's one less?
You don't like Rodians in general, though, because of their fingers, the way they push them, and they're all floppy.
They're so dumb. They don't bend. They're floppy. They look gross. They're just like hot dogs, green hot dogs flapping around on the screen.
Because I actually thought about you when they showed, pushing the button and it kind of wiggled and stuff. I was like, Albert's just gonna like throw his hands up on that scene and just say obscenities.
I'll save it as a little jiffy and make a meme of it or something. But yeah, it's just, they're just gross. Let's see. So yeah, Skywalker's Academy's chimed in. Brendan Wayne was one of them. And there was something else that I was going to go to. I'll come back to it a little bit.
Dale was asking if the girl was Deborah Chow. It was not Deborah Chow. It was, I forgot her name, something Jinsu. She's another stunt actor as well.
Okay. That's great. I love the fact that and this is not, I think Mando's done this already, but the shows have been trying to work in some of these folks that do a lot of the work behind the scenes or behind masks and don't have, a physical face presence, and they're letting them do it. So why not?
I think the other woman was one of the, I don't know if she's like a producer or someone, again, kind of working on the show as well. So it was, again, to your point, really cool to get a little FaceTime.
Yeah. All right. So we go back to Cetos, and we're back in the map area. This is where they've got this guideline. We're getting all the kind of the details of how this thing, it's got to load these 9 different segments. And once all 9 are loaded, then that's when the ship can take off finally. But he makes another comment, he being Baylan, makes that comment about faith. And he says, faith, I lost that a long time ago. Now, this, of course, plays into with the title of this episode, which is Fallen Jedi, right? Fallen Jedi are those that have lost faith. They've lost their way with the dogma or the order as it stands currently at that time. So no surprise here. But again, just, I guess, a good confirmation that we're dealing with someone who, I said this, I don't know if I should talk about this now because I'll go on a soapbox here. Maybe I'll save it for a little bit later. But just this idea that I do believe in my heart of hearts that Baylan's word is gold. Like, that's his honor. I don't want to use the word honor because that's probably not what he has, given he's slaughtering and murdering people, right? but he definitely is
honest at the very least. Yeah,
he's very honest, and I think you're going to hold him accountable for doing the things that he says he's going to do. So, but yeah, so all that said, I mean, those are certainly qualities that you would look up to, but you know, he's got his downfalls as well, right? And that's the whole part of the fallen part. So more on that later. I don't want to get into too much of that because this is really not what the scene is kind of doing. But we do get the, you know, once the star map is loaded up and they're pulling down the coordinates to Peridia, that line of witchcraft. And the way he's looking at this is great. Later on, when they get onto the ship and that hyperdrive fires up, his facial expressions and his eyes, the way he's looking around, like, what a bunch of pretentious crap this is, you know? Like, there's something about what he's saying with his eyes and how maybe he's like, just, I don't know. He's not really impressed, I guess, with the witchcraft, or he's not really, maybe it's just alien to him, for lack of a better term. But I just love the fact that he's not kosher with any of this.
Right. Okay. I didn't know if there was anything to say on that one.
No, we can move on. So we get into Morgan tells Baylan that, you know, stay here, protect the map. And that when she said that, I'm like, oh, yep, that's it. Okay, so this is where we're going to get the fight now. She takes off and we cut back over to the Force. Okay, so this is the Ahsoka, Sabine walking up on Merrick and Shin, right? We get the little line, going somewhere. I mean, this is all right out of like Rebels and stuff, which I really enjoyed. Some people were throwing shade at, I think, at Filoni for some of the writing. And I would agree that some of it is kind of obvious and some of it is very carbon copy, or at least inspired by Star Wars. A lot of the Star Wars that's come before, but how the hell is that a bad thing? I don't understand.
A little campy's not too bad.
Campy, and again, exactly. Thank you.
Again, it's more of that eagerness coming through, that youthful, because Marok is also standing there a bit posed and, you know, eager for the fight too, as eager as someone undead can be, I suppose. But, you know, you could just tell that excitedness about the challenge and being the blocker, you know, to a Jedi, especially one of Ahsoka, especially when she sees Sabine, like her mouth just starts watering of like, okay, you're back. You're back for round 2, right? So it's another ass kicking that's coming your way. And you can just feel that, you know, the way that she takes the cloak off and she jumps down, you can just feel that emanating from her, which I liked. I liked that swagger to come through on screen and for it to be palpable, because it makes whatever's about to happen just, you kind of root a little harder against them in some way because they're just so pompous about it.
Yeah, yeah. And so we get the different kinds of, we get the two fronts here, and we're going to talk about each one probably individually. It's the easiest way to go about this. So let's talk about Ahsoka and Merrick. So now you and I have not put a lot of time into the Merrick theories. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I really haven't commented on them. It's just been like, there are some things in Star Wars where I feel like, okay, we're going to get a reveal, and it does mean it's, you know, there's something there. What I would say about this, because a lot of people are upset, right? Of course, and I can see why they would be upset. I mean, we were at, again, Snoke level kind of theories, right, in terms of who Merrick was, and I think we did this to ourselves. And I didn't do this, but I'm saying we as a collective did this to ourselves. You have nobody to be mad at but yourself if you were expecting this to be a big reveal like Barriss Offee or Star Killer or Snoke or I don't know, whoever you want to throw in there. Ezra. Oh my goodness. Right.
That was the other prevailing one.
Sorry. I think that's the only thing I really went off on, because that's just, it still bothers me. Okay. Anyways, but that aside.
Sorry if y'all thought that.
I know you sticking that and turning that knife on the side of me there. But here's the thing. So what we've always said, and this still holds true, is that Dave Filoni doesn't do anything without purpose. And so the purpose of this was to show that somehow, again, leaning into the witchcraft of Morgan Elsbeth, she's been able to reanimate this character. For people that are coming into Star Wars, they probably don't know anything about witchcraft. They don't know what the capabilities are. And maybe they went really far with this one because this is kind of one of the extreme capabilities, one of the extreme powers that they probably have, which is to bring back people to life or reanimate things. But I think it was really just for Filoni to say, look, we've got a character who's doing this. And I'm assuming it's Morgan Elsbeth. Could be proven wrong there. But that was really it. So it wasn't so much about who the character was underneath, but giving more depth to the Night Sisters and specifically to Morgan Elsbeth. That was really the only thing. And so on that alone, he did exactly what he needed to do. Yeah, he maybe didn't give you the big reveal that you wanted, but that's not the point of the story. Any of the characters that were out there suddenly introduce a layer of complication and mental gymnastics to try to work your way out of. And if he doesn't do that, then everybody comes back at him and says, well, you just threw that in there. You never explained it. It's like, dude, we've got 8 episodes. We're halfway through the season. They're not going to do a big reveal on a character and suddenly just say, well, we're not going to come back to that. And I threw it in there for, red meat kind of thing. It just doesn't work. So I've said my piece. I'm actually okay with it. I'm actually pretty happy with it. And I like this idea that potentially, if it is Morgan Elsbeth who animated this thing, who's to say we don't get a returning Merrick? Maybe he becomes the Kenny of Star Wars, where he dies one episode and 2 episodes he comes back. We don't know. I think as long as Morgan Elsbeth is alive, the possibility of her reanimating somebody, like anybody really, or maybe it's some poor soul that was once an Inquisitor, I think it's possible that she could constantly bring him back, which I think is great, because how do you kill somebody like that? You have to go after the source, which is going to be Morgan Elsbeth. So, all right. I want your thoughts, I guess, on what you thought about the Merrick reveal, and then we can get into some of the specifics of the fight, because there are some really good moments here.
So of all the things that people aren't talking about that maybe they would have, like, it's more of a funny moment. So when all of the stuff escapes him and he starts going limp, it reminded me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like when the bad guy that Christopher Lloyd plays and he starts deflating kind of thing.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of that. He just deflates. So it's funny. I actually absolutely did not see this coming and absolutely loved it. Like, I love the idea, because we've seen this in Clone Wars and we've seen it to an extent in Rebels as well, right? And so I love, especially the Clone Wars one where they reanimated the dead. You get some of the same sounds, like what's escaping from him and the hisses do call back to that. So as a fan who knows those types of things, it is super exciting. If I'm a newer fan, I could see where that might be a little confusing, but I also like that it's playing into this thing that there are other magics at play that are beyond the Force Jedi. Yep. The Force that the Jedi use, and she is a part of that in some way. That seems to be the obvious answer, but also it keeps playing into what are they going to find when they go to this galaxy far, far away, and they actually go and explore what this place is, because it just seems more and more likely. Like, we know that her ancestors very likely came from another place. So do they use the Force differently? It starts to open up those questions and expand our knowledge. It's not just the Force. I could see where that makes some people very uncomfortable, because Star Wars is the Force and the Force is the Force, of course, right? So it is what it is, but now we're saying, well, it's more. It's different in different areas than it is here, right? And that's okay. Religion is not the same across the globe. And as many wars as we've fought probably speak to the contrary, but it's really okay, like, for it to be variations of a theme, right? And things like that. It's like Copeland. I'm sorry, you're probably lost on that reference. But anyway, but it was still, it's just really great that we had this, because I think it was really cool. It was a great throwback to the way that Obi-Wan defeated Maul, right? With the simplicity of it. Mm-hmm. He did give her a challenge. It makes sense why he was so distorted when he did talk, right? And he wasn't some just weird creature or some, malformed type of thing. So a lot of things all made sense, and I really enjoyed this part of it, because I didn't see it coming, which I just love when Star Wars can actually surprise us, because let's just be honest, it doesn't happen that often, at least on that kind of level. So to have that moment was pretty neat, and again, so many other callbacks, and it was still a good fight. It wasn't as quick as Obi-Wan and Maul was, so there was some teeth to it. There was still some meat to it, and really enjoyed this fight, but also just, man, really cool. Now, a lot of questions about when did she animate an Inquisitor of all things, right? And who was he? So there are questions we could be interested in digging into, but I'm kind of with you. If it died here and this was the last we heard of it, I'm cool with that. I like mystery in Star Wars as well, and I think this is a great one just to kind of let live, or let die, I guess.
Let die, as the case may be with this one. Yeah, and I think the fight itself was great. Like, she took a different approach. Like, you think about when she first fought Merrick, it was very kind of fighting him on his terms, or their terms. I don't even know what this thing is really, right? But their terms. And she takes a different approach here. Like, she goes into the calm, passive, Qui-Gon Jinn, meditative type state, and is able to kind of take him out. Now, we got to remember, she's taken out a lot of his Inquisitors before. So,
and usually fairly easily. Some challenge, but usually pretty easily.
Right.
Yeah.
This was never a threat to Ahsoka. I mean, they had to present the character as a threat in some way. They couldn't, or otherwise, what's the point? But at the end of the day, we all knew who was, well, of course, she's the main character, but we all knew who was going to win. Okay. She's dispatched these guys so many times in the past. And we get a lot of this too a little bit later, but the way she's holding up her sword and later on, especially during the Balin fight when they're kind of switching stances and all that, This is all right out of like samurai style fighting. I forget who it was. Someone was calling out the actual fighting styles, like kenjutsu and some of the other ones. I forget who it was.
I'll find it. You keep talking.
Yeah. So yeah, they were kind of pulling heavily from a lot of Japanese sword techniques, and so I really enjoyed all of that. But that whole scene with the way she kind of held it up and strike. So yeah, it was Gary says, I think these Force user fights have had so much more kendo and kenjutsu influence than many others, but this is the first time I felt like it was the OT despite the good sword fighting. So totally agree there. Love the callbacks there. And this is, again, Filoni. You know, there's a couple things that Filoni likes. He likes Godzilla, which you can already cite examples in Clone Wars.
In Bad Batch too, yeah.
Zilla Beast and, yeah, right. He likes a lot of Japanese movies, so a lot of the Kurosawa films. So you see a lot of influence there. He loves Lord of the Rings, so you're going to see influences there. I think he likes Treasure Planet, if I'm not mistaken. Someone mentioned that just recently. So yeah,
that's me with the little orbalist.
Right. We didn't even talk about that. But so you're seeing this, and he's doing the same thing that Lucas did. So don't get mad about this. Lucas did the same thing. He just pulled everything he loved and turned it into a movie. Okay, enough of that about that. But yeah, again, reestablishing to go back to the point of this fight, reestablishing this idea that there is another Force power at use, this Force magic. And if we're going to go back to Peridia, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like I really am wondering just how far down the rabbit hole of Sith or this dark magic we're going to get if we're suddenly exposed to, their ancestors, the Night Sisters ancestors, or some, maybe they originated in another galaxy, right? And in the way that they manipulate the Force, that whole galaxy is made up of Force magic, where there's a very small group of people that actually use the Force the way we do, right? It's just the inverse in their galaxy. So this idea, I think what he's trying to do is introduce this idea that there is another form of Force at play, and what better way to do that with a character like Merrick. So let's see. I want to see if there's anything else we had on here. Oh, so we can jump a little bit further here. So Ahsoka leaves after Sabine told her to do so. So she dispatches. She says, "Go." Of course, they're not listening to Hu Yang. So this was the beginning of the end in some ways, or the beginning of the world between worlds, if you will. But call back to that whole, let's take them together, and they didn't do that.
And then they didn't, right?
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add before we get into the Sabine and Shin fight?
No, let's do it.
So okay, so let's talk about the helmet coming off. I mean, it's fine. I get why they do this stuff, because it's like you want to see Natasha, right? You want to see that's her. We all know it's her, but maybe they were worried about, being labeled as, not paying for on-screen appearance versus voice actors. I don't know.
I don't think that's it. I think it's very much. Well, let's see if it makes sense why the helmet was lost, right? Especially when she falls to the ground and she raises her hand. Like, we thought she was using the Force, but it was really a ploy. Mm-hmm. I think the look on her face really sells it. I think that's something else entirely, right? And that she's making eye contact with Shin, and Shin, kind of raises the barrier, raises her hands trying to protect herself at first, turns away, only to find out she has no power, and to make that connection. And then for Sabine to be able to see her right away and to fool her and to use the advantages that she has against Shin, I think it makes it all the more interesting and more powerful. Do I love the Mandalorian armor and the helmet? Absolutely. It's so cool. And the way she paints it is always so cool. But that's great for animation. I think in person, you want to see the expressions on the face, because they mean so much more than they do in animation. So the decision for them to do that, I understand it here better than I would like for some of the things we had with Bo-Katan and Mandalorian. I think those made sense for the helmet to stay on, right? It's almost it was a cultural battle going on at the same time within the context of that story. Mm-hmm. So when you were wearing the helmet and not wearing the helmet, it kind of mattered in many cases, although not all the time, of course. But here, I think it made all the more sense to just pop it off. But I'm kind of with you, though. I like the Mandalorian set to be a set. Let's just keep it on. But I think in this context, it made sense for what they need to do. They're trying to make this fight personal. How do you make it personal? Let's look into each other's eyes and stare really menacingly at each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, I was just trying to make a joke that they needed a chin strap.
I know.
That was it. Chin straps on the helmets, and we're done, right?
They have them for X-Wing pilots, and they're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Because if they get evac, they are screwed. So
and they're constantly moving around. Like, usually, they'll take damage, and they're fine. but they have chin straps. But the Mandalorians that are running around, rolling on the ground, doing all kinds of crazy stunts and stuff, no chin straps. What's the deal? Stormtroopers as well. Okay. But overall, I mean, Sabine did a much better job against Shin Hati than her first fight. Like, she definitely was able to hold her own. She was lean on a lot of her experience as a Mandalorian at times, especially at the very end, once she had been disarmed and no longer had her lightsaber at her side. I thought the fight was great. Like, the choreography was awesome. I talked about this when we were doing the, what was it? I think it was the Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll breakdown character spotlight that we did. But I talked about her fighting style and how she had these really large swooping angle, like swooping strikes, and it was new, like something I hadn't seen really in Star Wars, but it was definitely on display here. You could see it, and maybe if you get a chance, go back and watch it. But she's got a very unique fighting style. Again, we'll probably never know the reason why, but I love the fact that it is different. The fight felt different than so many other fights that we've ever had because of her experience, and then we got to see some new moves from Sabine that we don't typically see, and I credit that to her training as, with Ahsoka, with Ezra and Kanan, but also her fighting as a Mandalorian.
I love Ivana Sakno's fighting style. She's so intense. Like the movements are so aggressive. They really are. They do feel like they are lethal every time she's going at it. They just feel like they have so much energy behind them, and that every strike is meant to be a killing blow. And I really like that energy. Like, everything is very kinetic with the way that she's brought that character to life, especially in the fighting styles in particular. And I really do appreciate that, because even when they're up close, you still get the quick motions. And so while you were saying that they're sweeping, people kind of view that as, well, maybe they're slow or very deliberate or something like that. No, they are still very quick and very precise about what she's trying to accomplish. And I really enjoyed what she was able to do with that character on the fighting, because I think it makes a big difference, especially with Sabine, where there's clearly still an advantage to Shin Hati in these scenes. Like, she is still pressing the advantage. Sabine is very much on the defensive most of the time. She's in very much evasive kind of way. Like, it was really cool, the little kind of backflip she kind of, or back fall, whatever it was, to miss it when she chopped the tree in half the first time. And Shin was like, "What was that? Like, how did you get away from that strike?"
The Matrix. It was like Neo all over again, kind of leaning back into it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like the bullet time type of thing, right? So, but it was really cool that she did fuse that. You saw more of Sabine coming through. The confidence came through. Some of the training they had done on the ship clearly had sharpened her skills, even though there was still very much a disadvantage for Sabine. And over time, she probably would have worn down a little bit. But I like that Sabine resorts back to her Mandalorian resourcefulness too, of using the van braces, using the Beskar armor to deflect, not give her that advantage, use it to block the lightsaber, and then use her wrist rockets in order to, again, disable her and kind of create space for herself at the very least. Again, it was probably temporary, but at the very least, Sabine was able to use her resources and be more like herself in the fight, to give her a chance at the very least.
Yeah, and I didn't get a sense from Shin. Like, I was hoping they would kind of, a close up on her face or give us some indication about whether or not she was surprised to be fighting somebody in Mandalorian armor. Like, that's got to be very unexpected to see somebody, you're wailing at them and they're just blocking it with their arms, and which she was doing there at the very end. Didn't really get a sense of that. There was some good, there was a lot of physicality in the fight too, a lot of punches, a lot of kicks. We got to see several kicks in this fight. So really great stuff choreography wise. That whole, her firing the dart right after. Well, let's talk about the non-use of the Force. So I think conclusively at this point we can say she does not have the Force. She can't wield the Force the way a typical Force user can.
That part is 100% true right now. At the very
right
least.
now,
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. Because and I love that. That was very. I was not expecting Shin to turn her face, like almost as she was anticipating the Force push of some sort, and it never came. And so then we get the line of you have no power, which totally makes sense. But what she wasn't counting on was what Kanan said, these tricks will amount to something, maybe save your life from time to time, but they won't keep you alive in the long run, right? Only training and discipline are going to do that. So to echo the line from Star Wars Rebels where Kanan's talking about it, it finally came full circle here, and she bought some time.
Or in the real world here, we call it the old rope-a-dope.
Yep.
And one thing before we move on from the scene, we talk about imagery and cinematic. When they pan at their own ground level with the helmet, and the fighting was in focus, and then they pan to the focus of the helmet, panning with the fight, and they get more and more blurry as they go to the background, and the red and the orange lightsabers fighting. Absolutely beautiful imagery with the red background, of course, from the trees and the leaves.
Yep.
Absolutely stunning. This was probably one of my probably my second favorite visual scene in this episode. The other was when the hyperspace ring is rising from the clouds, which was absolutely stunning. But this was a really cool scene to be able to have that go on, and it did really bring back fond memories of Luke and Vader fighting green versus red. And there was one thing I did notice with this fight. When I watched this the first time, it really did seem like Shin's lightsaber was kind of vacillating a little bit from red to orange. But every single time I've watched this since then, I have not seen it. Did you see any red to her lightsaber? And I think Ash even sent me a message saying, did it seem like it was going between red and orange? I was like, it kind of seemed like it, but every time else since then I've watched it, I don't see it whatsoever, especially when you're comparing the scenes as they're flashing back and forth with the Marok fight with his very red lightsaber. I couldn't tell if my eyes were playing tricks on me or not.
That's really difficult to say. I think if they were going to do it, they would have made it, again, probably more obvious. I don't think we'd be second guessing it. I think he would have just put it out there.
I thought so too. I just didn't know if you had noted, picked up on anything, or feel like, no, it was orange, bro. Like, move on.
I think it was orange, bro, pretty much the whole time.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Well, like I said, every time I've seen it since then, it's been orange. I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't bother me. I just thought it was interesting if it was actually happening.
No, I mean, I'd love that, but I'm okay with it just being orange, right?
Yeah, me too. I don't need things to change. Yeah.
But then Shin,
we only have 2 hours. We don't have 4. So.
But Shin had her own little like tricks there, and Alex said, "I like the 1980s ninja smoke bomb that she threw." I was not expecting that. Again, for what we're getting with the fight, Risk also said the tree slices were chef's kiss. Again, this is all very like right out of Samurai Showdown, the video game, or any one of the Kurosawa films, or any one of the ninja exploitation movies that came out during the 80s, where they're doing all this funny stuff and smoke bombs are falling everywhere. Again, it's just Filoni just playing with us, but I really question, like, where did she pick this up? Like, her master is Balin's skull. That's not a tactic that I would associate with the Jedi. So did they pick this up somewhere else, right? Is she just more pragmatic and is willing to use these little trickery type things? Maybe we'll get an answer, maybe we don't, but it was effective plot, attempt or plot device, because she was able to get away, and that's going to lead to a couple other things here in just a little bit.
Yeah, and at first I was like, why didn't she just use the Force, grab her lightsaber, and finish her off? But then the other part of me was like, you know what? She knows that Ahsoka is going after Balin, and she needs to get back to her master to make sure that goes well. They do have a mission, but I think she probably genuinely cares about Balin in some kind of way. So for her to rush back and do that and not worry about the riffraff, I think still made a little bit of sense, rather than just finishing the job and then going, don't waste any more time. Get back to the mission that matters. Protect the map. That's the mission right now.
Right. Yeah. My Star Wars guy says Revenge of the Ninja. I said no. Ninja 3 Domination. That's where it's at.
I just keep thinking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, that works too. Certainly fits.
It tracks.
It tracks. Okay. All right. Let's get into the Ahsoka Balin fight. So for the next 2 hours,
right,
we're going to break this one down. Okay. All right. So elephant in the room.
Wow, there's another elephant in the room?
There's a lot of elephants. This whole episode was full of elephants, Force elephants in the room. Yeah, at one point they made that little circle, and they weren't
like the wolves. They weren't Purgle anymore. They were
just elephants. Yeah, space elephants. That's coming, by the way. All right,
stop it.
He mentions knowing Anakin Skywalker. All right, so we got that line. Do you, now that you've had more of him, do you believe that he knew him, or was it one of these things where Anakin was just very well known by the Jedi Order, and through that he had a reputation, and he was really just kind of speaking to the reputation?
I think a little of both. Did he know him well? I'm going to go with no, probably not. Did he know him? Were they at the same table in the cafeteria at the temple? Maybe. And was he, were they eating, and was he talking about Ahsoka or something like that? Those all seem plausible. I don't think there's any reason to dispute any of that. Again, we've said that Balin's not necessarily, he doesn't lie. Now, he was definitely trying to get under Ahsoka's skin, right? He was trying to create an advantage for himself going into that fight by getting an emotional response to some of these things, because he knows that bothers her. It's interesting. I think Balin has a certain skill here, because we see it later on where with Sabine, right? He closes his eyes, takes a breath. It almost seems like he's reaching out with the Force, and he's like an empath in some way. And so I'm wondering if he's been able to study Ahsoka. Probably knows things, of course, about Anakin, clearly. And so makes a lot of connections there, but this empathic ability of his seems to be able to give him another, like a second sight advantage when it comes to the emotions of others. So I like that aspect of it. But I think he did probably know Anakin a little bit, not well, but definitely heard stories. And I mean, Anakin, everybody knew who he was and they knew all of their exploits. So that things would have come up and come about seem, very obvious that those are all plausible.
Yeah, I would agree. And it goes back. I was thinking too, like that whole training scene between Ahsoka and Sabine, where she trips her and says your emotions make you unbalanced. It's exactly what happens here, and he keeps doing this. I mean, he keeps
You
playing
almost
this
think
up.
like all these things were intentional. Yeah.
Well, right. Yeah. Wow. It's kind of weird how it all kind of fits in together when you have
Crazy.
one writer. But yeah, I mean, Ahsoka falling off the cliff, she was unbalanced, right? Emotionally, she was unbalanced. She's on the edge of a cliff. So it makes sense that she was the fallen Jedi. Okay. The other, I know you're already given up, but where was I? Notes. Oh, so he's,
See, you're doing it to yourself now.
I know.
don't even need to do this
You
anymore.
don't have to do anything. He was baiting her, of course. She says, and that's when things got personal. Like when she brought up Anakin, or when he brought up Anakin and said that, he basically asked her, hey, did you leave the order because, your master abandoned you and became Darth Vader, right? Is this, something
that she abandoned him and he became because of that? Or did she abandon him because he became Vader? It didn't matter. I'm not here to talk about my past.
Yeah, and she at that moment she takes her cloak off and she's like, "All right, that's it. Done. We're not having this kind of conversation." Yeah. And then we get an interesting bit of dialogue here, right? She says, "I'm not here to discuss my past. The only reason I'm here is to secure the future." Okay, so we get signaling there from Baylan about what he wants. She asks for you, and he says something far greater. Okay, what that greater is, I still don't know. Let's just, I've got thoughts.
A greater truth, yeah.
Yeah. Greater truth, right? She says ambitious. He says necessary. So again, what he's doing,
though, at the very least, yeah,
he's very consistent. He has got in his mind something's going to happen, and he's got to do what he's doing because it's a necessity. It's for the greater good, right? So these are all hints here about what's happening. And she says, and you find starting another war necessary. He says, I'm not starting a war, but Thrawn will. It is an unfortunate evil, but speaks to the greater. Oops, I forgot my lines there. Got to scroll over. But speaks to a greater truth. One must destroy in order to create. So this is echoing what we got in the trailer. And then this is when Ahsoka, they draw their lightsabers. When Ahsoka, who draws her lightsaber first, which I thought was interesting, right? Yep. She's the aggressor in this scenario. She's trying to put an end to it. She's trying to stop that map from firing up or downloading or whatever else. But once she ignites her lightsaber, I love what he said. He said, how inevitable. Like, you are exactly what I thought you would be. You're the aggressor. You're just like your master. All
like
you
every
want,
other Jedi, right?
Yeah, like, and I don't know if it's here or maybe it's a little bit later, but he talks about death and destruction. And I think this speaks to, so this is where I kind of want to talk about Baylan just a little bit. So I think it speaks to what Baylan his motivation is. Now, I think I've gone on record earlier on, I think in the Baylan episode, I had speculated that maybe he is trying to, form a new Jedi Order in his own eyes, in his own vision, or call back to the way the Jedi should or once were, or how they should be, however he sees it. I think that still probably aligns, and I think that's probably my primary theory about what he's doing here, because I can't really understand anything else at this point. But if you look at what he's saying here, I think that probably holds true, that he is, if he's calling Ahsoka and he's calling Anakin death and destruction, and you look at that, when you look at through the lens of Order 66, the Jedi becoming warriors, having lost their way, all the things that Count Dooku said as well, I think that pretty much lines up where he would feel like, wow, they really went the wrong way, and we should truly be defenders, protectors of the galaxy, but we shouldn't be out there fighting wars for people. And so I can see where maybe this is what he's talking about. Thrawn is going to start a war. There's nothing that can stop that, and he by himself is not going to be able to stop that. But if he can find something in Peridea, which I still don't know what it is, right? But if there's something there that's going to give him the power that he needs to reinstate a Jedi Order and bring back that order to the galaxy and be there to stop or protect others from Thrawn's war, that to me speaks to the greater good of the galaxy. It speaks to the greater good of the Jedi Order, which I think he's still, maybe proud of. And maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, but I think he still has some honor, some allegiance to the way things should be rather than where they ended up after Order 66. I don't know. I think that's probably the more prevalent theory that I have in terms of where he's going. And we can get into some other things that he says a little bit later, especially when he's talking to Sabine. But any thoughts from, I guess, from this conversation that they had prior to the fight? We'll get into the fight in just a second, but anything that in this little preamble here that gave you any inclination about what it is he's wanting to do, his motivation?
No, yeah, I think if anything, it probably emboldened your theory a little bit. Now, I still don't know that I agree with. There's still a disconnect in there with, but I think when you look at the way that he's dressed, and again, kind of this old way, like the old gentlemanly ways that we've talked about before, there is a certain call to the past. I think that is probably definitely a part of him, that he feels like something, we lost our way. We can get back there though, but we have to do a cleansing in order to do it. Now, the disconnect with that, and Gary actually put this in the chat, was, it's the power beyond your imagination thing that I keep coming back to. That's not very Jedi-like. I mean, even if we look at even to go back to the Knights of the Old Republic days, or the Old Republic, or whatever is the Dawn of the Jedi, that's probably where I'm actually going. Even that wasn't necessarily a thing for the Jedi, right? Maybe like a little gray area in there somewhere, but that comment still sticks with me and concerns me a little bit, that it's not so altruistic in what he's trying to do, even though he's saying, and altruistic in the form of, my intent is pure, even if there will be lots of blood on my hands in order to get there, right? There's a lot of people who believe you have to break everything down, destroy, in his words, in order to create that utopian society and bring you back to that. But the power comment still really, really is the thorn in my side of why would he say that and look that way, if this is really what he was trying to do, was build an order, unless it was an order that would serve his purposes and maybe serve him in some way. Maybe, and again, does this go back to the power of what's on Cetos, or the Purgil, or this gateway, or whatever it might be? Is there more to it? But I am more subscribed to your theory in general now than probably I was before, given this brief interaction with the dialogue.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, the key component in all this is whatever it is on Peridia. Like, I 100% agree. Like, this could go a completely different direction once we get there and we understand what this power is.
And he didn't even know what was on Peridia. That's the other thing that kind of wrinkles this all out, is that his intent was to bring Thrawn back and let Thrawn ensue chaos, and then he cleaned it up, right? Or something to that effect.
Maybe.
I mean, at least that's how your theory kind of goes, right? So I don't know that he actually intended to find anything else on Peridia. That part is still less clear to me, because there still seems to be a disconnect with what Baylan Skoll's motives are and what his actual end game truly is. And he plays it pretty close to the vest, even if you get little nuggets of it here and there. So I really like how they're playing this character out and giving him, you just get a little as you go, and you have to really kind of speculate and think about it and just see what happens at the end of the day. He's not going to tell you point blank what's most important to him.
Mm-hmm. There's a moment where they cut away from the fight. Like, the fight starts, and I think it was Risk was talking about how the sound of his lightsaber, it's got a really buzzy kind of, like, it almost sounds like a World War II like engine playing the entire time. You can kind of hear it, the way it just hums. It's very different than they've done with any other ones, honestly.
Well, and I know not everyone's a musician, but if you actually layer his lightsaber sound and Ahsoka's, it's a perfect fifth. And actually, the beginning of Star Wars is a perfect fifth. So it's just kind of interesting.
Didn't know that. All right. Thank you, Jonesy. So I did enjoy his fighting style. Like, he's got a broadsword. I think they even said it's a broadsword kind of lightsaber at some point. I forget, maybe it was the promotional stuff or whatever. But the way he was holds
probably saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to, and so Kylo Ren uses, I know in Jedi Survivor there's a stance that they use. Kylo Ren does the same thing with his sword. He uses like the cross hilt type fighting style. So you can see shades of that in there, but there's just something that was super like powerful about his strikes. And even when he's jumping around, I mean, he's like a graceful bear on screen there. Right. Ray Stevenson, as big as he is, but you could see it. I mean, you could feel it. And like, Ahsoka's tiny compared to him. But I just loved all of the fighting that was going on. And we'll get into more here in just a second, but I want to break away for one quick second, because we get what I think was a pretty funny scene where Morgan Elsbeth asks that droid, how long until we have the final coordinates? And he says moments. And I thought all of the droids ever in Star Wars would have given you an exact number of like 3.2 seconds or whatever. But this one droid just, he nailed it.
Totally finally being vague. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be ready when it's ready, when it's done.
Way to vague book me, bro. Yeah.
I just got to chuckle on that droid. Credit to you, bro, for sticking to for not being precise on that. So moments is all he says. Okay, so we go back to the fight.
Well, he could have been like Mike Rondo. It'll be ready when it's ready.
When it's ready, yeah, that's exactly what it is. He's like the Mike Rondo of Star Wars droids. I wish he listened to the show because that would be funny. Okay, so we get back to the map, and this is where Ahsoka is now trying to make her way over to the map itself to try to take it out. And they did a pretty good job of like showing that the fighting style has changed. It was her not necessarily attacking, but more dodging. He was more on the offensive to prevent her from getting there. And then, he grabs her at one point, and you get to see the sheer power of him. Yeah, I mean, he yeets her with one hand, just chucks her over the rocks back over there. That's the official term, I think, in Star Wars. But
that's the official Star Wars term.
Yeah. And then we get a little bit later, we get the line about your legacy, like your master's, is one of death and destruction. And this is where Ahsoka goes off. Like it's a turning point for her in some ways. She starts hitting him with a barrage of kicks, finally takes him off, his feet, literally throws him back, which I thought was great. And then she goes and grabs a star map, and we get her burning her hand up. And so this at least solved a lot of the speculation, later on when she's kind of using the Force and her strength and the Force to keep Baylan at bay, so he's not pushing in on her as when he's got her down on her knees. But a lot of people were speculating that she was, her hand was burning because she was so close to the lightsaber. That turns out not to be the case, and it was in fact that she touched the star map. I don't know that there's a whole lot to discuss here. For me, what are you looking at? Oh, well, yeah. So okay, so the other smaller white elephant in the room is whether or not. Whether or not we're going to, if this was a play on the Indiana Raiders of the Lost Ark with the medallion and, getting the one side of the face, we've got a question now at some point. Like we talked about this in the last episode, if this is probably going to take off, they're going to take off. And we figured once it does, how in the world are they ever going to make it out there? I don't think they're going to go down the route, honestly, of, her hand in a.
It doesn't tell you anything, just the ball. Yeah.
It's just the ball, right? Okay.
It's just the ball. Yeah.
I'll make sure we're clear on that. But I think people were asking questions about, like, why did it burn her now? Why didn't it burn her when she first touched it or when Sabine had it? And my
none of them touched it when it was active, after it was active, though.
That's true. It's true.
I think that's the difference. When it was in Sabine's apartment, like the droid deactivated and took it, Sabine did not. So it was. I don't think it's been active and then touched since then. And if you look at in the previous scenes for the other episodes, when the bad guys have been around it, it's just gone back into the cradle and sat there. So I don't know that anybody's actually touched it since it's been active, at least immediately when it was active.
Yeah, I guess my question is, did it burn her because there's something witchy about it and she's a Jedi, or was it like if you've ever been using a drill bit for a while? And you go grab that drill bit, it's hot. You don't touch it right away. You get that sucker cooled down, and you can pull the drill bit out. That's kind of how I interpret it. I didn't interpret anything more, I don't know, witchy, I guess. That wasn't really where I thought they were going with this. It was super hot. It burned her, and that's the end of it. But what did you think on that?
Yeah, I think it was a little. It's okay for it to be a little of both, I think, for at least a very short period of time. So I think, yeah, it was active. It was active for a while, generated a lot of heat, but it was also being upkept and fueled by Night Sister magic. So that there was something else to it may have made it worse than what it was. Maybe that's why she wasn't able to resist, or I won't say heal or anything like that, but maybe it felt worse and she experienced more of it than maybe she otherwise would have. Mm-hmm. It's okay for it to be both, but otherwise I think it was just really hot. And she took it right off. So
okay, I'm fair. That's where I like it.
Yeah, and go back to some of the fighting styles, and because I had also seen some stuff online about why she was. I think you and I actually talked about this too. Why was she just using one lightsaber, not two? And but first, before that, I love when she pulled the lightsaber down to the side. Kind of a classic pose. It reminded me very much of Visions. So it was really exciting to see. It may not have been a call to Visions, but that Visions has now a link to canon content in that kind of way. And this was the Sith episode from Volume 2, the very first one. So really,
we're gonna edit all this out.
I know, but I still hate it on the live stream. Stupid motorcycles going by. But I like the pose though. But I like that she used the one lightsaber, and it was kind of mimicking the pose, and it was again the bit of the spaced out grip. And I think some of that was because of the power of Baylan's skull. Like I think she felt like she had to balance that out. You can do it with quickness and things like that, but she's also not as quick as she was when she was Snips, right? When she was younger and and agile, or more agile. She's still very agile, just saying. But also, I think just from a practicality standpoint of filming it made more sense too, to where you get that more dynamic take and you feel his power. And while she's absorbing a lot of it at first, later on you start to see that she is more playing off of it and using that athleticism more so than, like you said, he's just kind of the lumbering bear, or the graceful bear, I guess, the dancing bear, if you will. But I like that she was trying to imitate that and try to defend against that power in a different way. Whereas usually in her youth, she would have just done it with, with speed and agility and two lightsabers. A little bit different as she's a little bit older.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think we did talk about this in one of the other episodes, that why she was using one. And so here's just a couple other thoughts that came to mind. She's she's had two, she could easily use two lightsabers, but she's had a fight already where she went up against somebody who had very powerful swings, and maybe she learned a lesson in that, and that's Vader during Twilight of the Apprentice, right? She lost that fight, essentially. I mean, she was about to die. So maybe she learned her lesson there and realized, okay, I can't do that. Plus, I mean, outside of Vader, I mean, the only one that comes to mind is somebody like Savage Opress, who's this big, hulking, lumbering kind of character that's got a lightsaber. Everybody else has all been about agility and quickness. The Dooku's, even the Sidious, especially Sidious, when he had his two lightsabers out when he was fighting Savage Opress and Darth Maul. Darth Maul himself, she's fought him many times. I think two lightsabers makes total sense. You got a lot of quick moments. The type of fight is very different. And so I think it makes sense for her to use one lightsaber to really make sure that she's effective in parrying and absorbing some of these powerful blows that are coming from a character like Baylan Skoll. So I think that all makes sense. All right, so when she took the map off the little pedestal there, this is where he says that was unwise. And we get this new flavor. Like, I think up until this point, there was a part of me that wonders if he was not necessarily pulling punches. I'm not going to go that far. But I do wonder if he really was still thinking, I really wish we didn't have to fight. And that's the sense I got. I meant to talk kind of open with this. I don't think he was really looking forward to this fight. You can almost see it on his face. He had his cloak on. He was kind of lost in thought, thinking, crap, here it comes. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to have to do it. But this was a different turn. Like, when that happened, she was now directly impacting the outcome of what his goal is, his mission is. Whatever that is, the greater good, she was now putting that at risk. And that's why he says that was unwise. You've crossed the line. I didn't want to have to do this, right? There was probably a gentleman's kind of agreement here or whatever, but you've gone too far now. And his whole demeanor changes, and he just starts swinging for the fences on her. And you can see it's just rocking her. She's getting rocked back and forth. I think there's like three rapid successive shots that have a lot of force behind them, no pun intended.
And she's wounded, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where now Shin walks in. He yells at her, like, get the map. Yeah, all the pleasantries are off. And this is where, the force stasis thing comes in, or the force crush that Ahsoka did, and then the telekinesis to throw her up. Again, I never really got any sense of, like, dark side usage here. Same. I think it was just a practical, a pragmatic approach to where she was. She has the ability. She has the power. She does not want Shin to do it, so she's going to use whatever energy, whatever tactic she's got left, even if it does mean maybe getting real close to some of the stuff there. She's going to do what she needs to do to ensure that star map doesn't fall back in their hands, because everything at this point relies on that star map.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the breaking point. But again, it makes sense that she also needs to take Shin out, because she's not in a position to be able to take both of them out either. And yeah, she was probably leashing out at her because Sabine must have been defeated or hurt or killed, and so there was probably a little bit of pain coming out in that. But I think also practically, she wasn't in any condition to take Baylan on by herself, much less two of them, especially given that she was hurt and her back was against the cliff. So it made sense for her to make that move.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is so, like, Skywalker's, yeah, she became unbalanced, right? This is going back to what we were talking about earlier, where her emotions have unbalanced her at this point. So she became very susceptible to Baylan's attacks, which he was already the aggressor, already had his foot forward in many ways. And then this is where he utters a line: it didn't need to come to this, but no other way. Again, calling back to death, destruction. You're just like your master. You're just, in my head, again, this is headcanon, but in my head, you're just like all these other Jedi. You're just like all the other ones that went south, that lost their ways. And, you know, I'm here to kind of restore everything.
Right.
This is where Sabine walks in, Sabine destroy it. And Baylan finally gives her that final blow, right? Knocks her off, and we get the Fallen Jedi title. Okay, before we get into Baylan and Sabine, because I think this is a pretty meaty kind of discussion here, but anything else you want to add on this one?
I think we've explored it pretty well.
Okay, so let's talk about this scene between Baylan and Sabine. Right. Well, I don't even know where to begin. So we get
she chose poorly. I don't know.
So a lot's been said about.
You don't even believe that. Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't believe that.
She chose the only path that was in front of her, right?
I think so. So a lot has been said about Sabine. She's been getting a lot of flack about how could she have done this? She made the wrong choice. And I don't know. Here's my rationale behind it. It didn't take me long to get here because I think if you watch Rebels, if you've stuck through all 4 seasons and you know these characters, I think it makes a lot of sense. Number one,
a lot. Yeah.
She just saw her master potentially die. Like she saw her at least fall off the side of the cliff. Probably has never seen Ahsoka been taken out like that in any of the times that they've ever been together. So that in itself was already shocking. Number 2, again, maybe not Force sensitive, but I think from Baylan's perspective, and this is going to feed into my theory a little bit later about where Ahsoka is, but I think she felt like Ahsoka was truly dead. Like Ahsoka was gone. She fell off this cliff. There's no way she could have survived. We probably know better than that, but you know, she lost her. And then third, you've got everything relying on this star map. And if she blows it up, right, this goes back, again, another callback to Raiders of the Lost Ark, blowing up the Ark kind of thing with Belloc. But if she blows this up, then there is nothing. They have nothing to get Ezra. And we've already established this in 2 of the previous scenes about, you know, making this decision. This is exactly what Ahsoka was talking about. Can she make the right decision? Can she make the decision that's for the greater good rather than her own selfish reasons? And we know that's just not Ahsoka. Her whole lot in life, the only thing that she's been tasked with, the thing that she is completely obsessed over for the last however many years now has been trying to get back to Ezra. He tasked her with this mission and said, I'm counting on you. And she took that to heart. This is all that she has left. This is the only family member that she has left. And with that thing gone, he's gone. It's like she said earlier, we may never be able to get back. I think all of that seeps in. And knowing what we know about Rebels and how close, tight-knit of a family that really was, there's no question in my mind she was going to do this. I think for her, it was like, I'm going to do this. However, I'll figure it out when we get there, right? I think in her mind, it's like, if I can just get to Ezra will make things fine. Yes, I'm going to probably potentially sacrifice the galaxy and things are going to get really bad. But if I can get to Ezra, things will be fine. So I think in that moment, all of that went through her head. And I think ultimately that's what she used to kind of rationalize that decision. Even if she knew in the heart of hearts, it really wasn't the right thing to do. She had to do it. There was no other choice at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you look at her options. I mean, she destroys it. He kills her. Right, game over. And so she's probably not quite ready to die yet either, I think, in that regard. And so I'm with you. I think she looked at what was in front of her. She chose to try to keep hope alive. We can question whether it's the right decision. I mean, giving the enemy what they want clearly is a huge risk, right? And we've seen the good guys take these risks before. We've seen the bad guys take these risks before. We've seen the Empire do it. You know, so does it pay off in the end? You don't always know until you play it out, right? And it's almost like the Matrix, like when I forgot what the scene was. All right, well, we got to see where this goes, right? The cause and effect, right? Mm-hmm. So you just have to see where it goes, and you just play the odds of saying, well, I have a 0% chance of bringing him back and protecting the galaxy and living if I make this one decision. But I've got a 10% chance if I do all of the opposite of that. So I'm going to go in with the 10% because the 0% to me feels like not real, you know, not going to work out in my favor. You know, so I can see why she made that call. But again, it does speak more to, and it's okay for fans to be upset and to be, I think, disappointed is maybe the word I would hopefully use for people.
I get it.
It's okay to be disappointed in her choice because you're like, man, I thought she was growing. I thought she was making some progress here, that she would have made the right call. But come on, guys, we knew we were going to go out there. So, I mean, what are you surprised about in that regard? But also, it's okay to be disappointed in that she still has growth yet to do. And you're right. We have to look back at what motivates Sabine. And what motivates Sabine is not Ezra specifically, it's family, right? It's something that she struggled with. She left her family. She went to the Empire. She thought she found something there. They betrayed her. She betrayed her family in the process. She found a new one. She lost part of that family more than one time. Is
Finally
falling
got on
apart.
good terms with her family again.
Got on good terms with her family. Kind of had a master for a while, and then lost her family again. Based on, I mean, you just think about the cycle of gaining something and losing something for Sabine,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and now she's back to her last absolute chance. And the only other person that maybe she considered as family, besides maybe Hera, just went off the side of a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's desperate. And when you're in that backed in position, you make the choice that your heart wants you to make, and it's not necessarily the bad choice, but it is a choice. And so we'll see what the ramifications are of it, right? If this is the right thing, if Thrawn comes back and wreaks havoc, or yeah, they go find him, but they also find Ezra, and they have a path forward to make things better. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But it's okay to be disappointed. I just don't know if I'd be upset at this, because this is what makes the story interesting, folks. They were going to get out there. The bad guys were not going to take the Purrgil, right, in order to get Thrawn back, and we know Thrawn's coming. So some of it, there are emotional reaction, and that's okay. But let's kind of keep it in check.
Yep. I'm going to go to the comments quickly, because I think some folks are kind of
Yeah,
reaffirming some of our thoughts here.
Yeah, Danny hit it right on the head too when you get to hers. Yeah.
So Gary said truth. Dante said, to me, this is very similar to Luke in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. There was a lot of off screen that had hurt Sabine, that put her in a mentality to make this decision, and the only way to find Ezra.
Actually, can we pause on Dante? Because I think that's a really good comment, because I think this is where you were talking earlier about, do people get lost without knowing all of that context? I think this is one of those times where maybe you get a little lost. You're like, it seems like there was a lot there. Someone needs to tell me what I've missed and catch you up on all the stuff I just verbal vomited over in 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
There's so much there. I think that's one of those times where it's like, man, there is a huge history you don't know about, and it hits harder if you know all of that. But if you don't, it could be a little confusing. So it's a great comment, Dante.
And we're gonna get. Don't worry. We're gonna get into every one of these lines, because I got a lot of stuff here to talk about.
Do it all.
We're gonna do it all. So we're coming back to the dialogue in just 1 second. So let's see. Dante said, "Would Rebels era Sabine do the same thing? Probably not. We aren't in Rebels era anymore." And I think that's fair. I think during that time, maybe not, but I think it just depends on the circumstances. Let's see. Gary said she basically did something similar to disable the weapon she made for the Empire. And then Danny said Sabine did exactly what I expected Sabine to do. And that was pretty much what I had said online. Like, if you thought she was going to do anything different, you're not wrong, but you just don't know the character as well, I think, as some of us who have, loved this character and watched her literally grow up before our eyes. So this is...
And to Dante's point, knowing where the character is in this moment versus where she's been in other content as well. If you do have some of the context, recognizing a lot has happened since then. But do we have enough information, or do some people have enough information to really put that together is a question, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go through the dialogue, because I think there are some really good tidbits in here and things that we can speculate on, or at least theorize on. But, he first starts off, so right when she goes off the cliff, we get the whole, he's firing at her and he's blocking all the bolts. I've got a question. And it's kind of burning in the back of my head. I have not put a lot of thought into this yet, so I don't really get an answer for myself yet. But it's the question about, why did Baylan not kill Sabine? Like, he had 2 opportunities to do so. Okay, arguably the first opportunity was when she started shooting him with the lightsaber. He could have deflected any number one of those bolts back. Okay, maybe she's in Beskar or whatever. At least it's an opportunity. He wasn't offensively. He was just deflecting the bolts and very slowly walking up to her. The other moment is after he's already turned off his lightsaber. He could have force choked her. He could have used telekinesis to pull that out of her hand. There's no way, I guarantee you, there's no way Baylan or Sabine would have been able to hold on to that map if Baylan put all his force effort into telekinesis, pull that right out of his hand or her hand. Yeah. But he doesn't. He does not kill her, and he does give her an opportunity to basically come over to his side. And I guess that's where the only answer I've been able to come up with is he wants her to live, because potentially, he sees her as an ally. He wants to bring her on. Maybe it's, a rule of 2 thing, kind of weird thing where he's going to get rid of this crazy nutbag of Shin that he's been had for, and, Sabine's a little bit more levels headed. I don't know, but it's just weird that he didn't take those. He could have easily done a number of different things, but he didn't. He allowed her to live. He got her to trust in him. And we'll get into more in that a little bit. But I guess any thoughts around, do you agree that he had an opportunity to do more than what he did?
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely he could have. And I think this speaks to the character in general about what is his motives aren't out there to kill and take and slay everything in sight. He wants people to just give him what he wants. He gives them the opportunity, like, give me what I want and give me the opportunity. And now, if you're going to be aggressive against me, so go back to episode 1, if we want to, or part 1, if we want to use that as a comparison, he was going to give them a chance to let him walk in, take what he wanted, and then leave.
Right.
Now, they probably would have responded as he tried to escape, but going in, if he wouldn't have, if the captain or whoever, Hale, wouldn't have run his mouth and got all snippy with him, then Balin probably would have not done some of the things he did and sicked the shin out on him and killed everybody. So I think that's the character, though. I mean, that's not his play. His play is, give me what I want. Let's work towards something mutually beneficial. There's no reason why I can't get what I want and then you can actually benefit from you. And that's why I like he takes the moment to close his eyes, takes a breath, reaches out with the Force, and actually feels what it is that motivates her. So some of it he probably knows from research and whatever, but other things are probably the emotional response of her pain and also knowing that she yearns for family. That's not something you read on paper for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But he can put those connections there, and you get that feeling from her, and you put all together. But he doesn't necessarily just want to. You're right. He could have ripped it out of her hand with the Force or whatever, and shoved her back and told Shin to finish her off. Wouldn't have stopped Shin from killing her when she started Force stroking her, But he's like, no, it's okay if we all work towards the same goal. And I think for you, it fits your narrative about, hey, he's not a terrible guy. He just wants what he wants, and he will kill to get it. But he feels that strongly about it, and he's willing to build allies along the way, or at least not necessarily have to build new enemies, as a result. And they can't all pull in the same direction because he knows that she does want the same thing. So why can't they help one another here? And he doesn't have to have any more blood on his hands. So
Yeah,
I think it kind of helps your theories out in general, but you don't have to go down the path of I wouldn't have gone down the path of saying he's trying to recruit her as part of his merry band or something like that. If that works out, he's probably like, all right, cool, that kind of works out, but
yeah,
probably not part of his thinking process there. But I don't have to she's already an enemy. I don't need to make it worse,
Right. So, yeah, and so I agree with all that.
It's like that book called Thrawn Alliances. I mean, that's kind of the theory behind it, right? They made an alliance out of common necessity of what they needed, even if it wasn't lasting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. And I want to touch on that here a little bit later. I know Skywalker's Academy is in chime, and he said, yeah, because he wants to use her against Ezra. I've got a different take on that. I don't think that's in his character. I don't think that's in his DNA. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think he's a man of his word.
It does not seem duplicitous, at all.
Right. I think it's really as simple as we've already seen. And I'm glad you brought up the opening scene, because I think that pretty much telegraphed everything that or not everything, but a lot of what we need to know about this character. If you are in his way, then you are going to be taken out. I think Ray Stevenson himself said that as part of one of the interviews that was done at Star Wars Celebration last year, right? He said the exact same thing. So I think in this moment, I think he allowed Sabine the opportunity to not do what her master did. Clearly, Ahsoka was already trying to take it off, and that's when we already talked about that. That's when he went, bananas on her and essentially tried to kill her at that point. Here, he was giving her a chance and let her make her own decision, right? Free agency to decide on whether or not she wants to continue down the path of the fallen Jedi or the awry Jedi, or here's a new opportunity, new blood, a new opportunity to go find your friend. And clearly, she made that decision. So we'll come back to there. I want to circle back on that in just a little bit. I want to go back to kind of step through the dialogue, or at least the rest of the dialogue here, because he starts off by saying, do as your master says, destroy it, right? And he even nods in approval, like, go ahead, destroy it. And he's playing her. He knows the fact that if she does destroy it, there's no chance that she's going to be able to find Ezra. So, Ahsoka's gone. Where else is she going to go? She's not Force sensitive.
He feels the conflict in her immediately, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't want to do it, so he's egging her to do the things that he will make her not want to do it even more.
Yes. And then he goes on to say, she says she would have done it, stay back, but you're not like her, are you? Right? Putting that doubt in her that you guys really aren't the same kind of person. You're smarter, you're wiser, you're going to make the better decision here that she was not able to make, essentially, is what he's saying. And then this is where he reaches out with the Force, and I love this, man. He reaches out to the Force. She is like a beacon of emotion right now, So it's not hard to get in there, to break the shell and really feel what's going on. And he pulls in a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of demons there that he picked up on pretty quickly. I think this goes back to what you were saying earlier too. Like, yeah, I think this would be kind of shocking that she would make this decision the way she did without the additional context. And I think Filoni tried to give us some of that context in the dialogue and in the actions, right? Him tapping into the Force, getting a feel for what she's going through, what she's thinking. The fact that he goes into more of a passive mode. He takes he turns off his lightsaber immediately. He puts it on his hilt.
Becomes more fatherly or grandfatherly all of a sudden, right?
Right. Like you can trust
me. A reasonable one. Yeah.
Right. It's like negotiating with a terrorist, right? I'm putting down the weapon. Let's just talk about it. I'm slowly coming up to them. And the entire time, you know, he immediately feeds into her emotion about, I know you feel that Ezra Bridger is the only family that you have left. You look at Natasha's face on that when she says that, she does a great job of like, what? Like, how do you know this?
And it was just a gut punch because of how true it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where he puts it. This is where he finally puts it on his clip. She says, you don't know what you're talking about. And she can't even, you can see it all over her face. She can't even believe that he knows this, but it's true. She knows it's true as well. That is her only family. And then we get some really good stuff here from Filoni and coming through from Ray Stevenson. He says, I know that's what's holding you back. Your family died in Mandalore because your master didn't trust you, Sabine. All right. Now I'm going to pause there, because I had never really considered this angle of trust, like almost like he's trying to pit Sabine against Ahsoka and say, your master didn't trust you, therefore your family died. And I'm assuming there was an opportunity to have saved her family in some way. I think, well, how did you interpret that line that, you know, your master didn't trust you? And then he ties that directly to her family dying. So that's the only thing I could think of, but any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways this probably could have gone, and I think it's really interesting because for a long time we had, and I think we said at the top of the show, was we always speculated that it was Ezra versus Thrawn. That was the rift between them. Did not see this coming, that this was going to be probably the main rift here. But I think some of it is like, did she get wind that something was going to happen? And still maybe a little bit to where we were speculating is that Ahsoka's drive of saying, no, here's our mission, here's what we need to do. To be a Jedi is to know when to not have attachment and things like that, and have something else that you're working on, and not want to go and believe whatever she's saying that Mandalore was going to be under attack. Maybe she had advanced notice of what was going to happen, or maybe even while it was happening and they weren't in a position to be able to go do it because of some decisions that Ahsoka had made. But, you know, clearly that rift and just reopening that wound is the best way to get someone to really start questioning everything that they thought they knew. And fill their head with, well, not even fill their head, but give them the confidence and give them, like, this is how you could remedy that. Don't make the same mistake twice. This is like a second chance for you to go and do the thing that you felt was right the first time, but someone didn't have that faith in you the first time to believe whatever you were telling them, or at least have confidence in you that, hey, this is important to you. This is what we should go do instead of whatever it is they were out doing, or whatever mission maybe Ahsoka thought was a higher priority than whatever Sabine had caught wind of.
Yeah. Yep. He then goes on to say, you and I share a common goal to make this journey, right? That's all truth. They both want to get there.
That was a great line. You talk about hooking the fish. That was it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great sell on his part. He says, you to be returned to your long lost friend, and I to serve the greater good. Now, this is, again, a message she's heard from Ahsoka so many times about serving the greater good. I mean, it almost, you know, she may be looking at it going like, well, maybe he does have, you know, some kind of
probably looking at him like, I don't care about your greater good at this point.
Yeah, that's probably true too. Yeah, that's probably more accurate. But he does try to use it, and he says, come with me willingly, and I will give you my word, no harm will come to you, Sabine. You will be reunited with your friend. So let me pause there. So I had posted something on social media about this, and I truly feel in my heart of hearts that he is going to be true to his word. Like, I don't, and this is going back, and
he's already shown it too, right, with Shen. So all the more reason to believe him, right?
Exactly. And I like the idea that he's using, I actually do like the idea that he could be using Sabine as a pawn here, as a carrot to dangle in front of Ezra, because maybe there's something he wants from Ezra, et cetera. I get all that, but he's got a precedence of keeping his word. And I like the idea that this may be causing a rift. Like, I like the idea that once they get to the ship, which they've done now, but at some point, I mean, Morgan Elsbeth has got to be looking at this and going, why did you, one, not kill her? Two, she's not even a Jedi. She has no play in this.
Right.
Then you not only did you not kill her, but you brought her on board as a prisoner. If that would have been Morgan, she would have never even, if that had been Morgan or Shin, they would have killed Sabine in the instant, right? Never would have allowed this to happen. So I like the idea that that may be a rift that is caused a little bit later, because I think what I said was, if Baylan does not deliver Sabine to Ezra directly, he's going to ensure that happens. And if anybody gets in the way, that's going against his word. I can see him lashing out or going against a Morgan or anybody else that says, no, she doesn't need to be reunited. Because I think about it from his perspective. There is a greater good here. There is an ultimate power that he's in search of. Right. Why does it matter if we allow Sabine to be with Ezra, right? That is so insignificant in the grand scheme of the things of the galaxy.
Karma for him or something.
Yeah, I could see it that way too. Right. But there's so why not? You know, he's already committed to it. He's already made that word. I think he's going to see that through, because it really doesn't make a difference.
And he can leave him there. Like, so he can keep his word and then leave him and jet back to the galaxy and be like, all right, well, cool.
So I hope somebody goes, I hope someone, puts up a fit about why did we do this and try to stop him from delivering her. Because I can see where Morgan's like, hell no, you're not going to give him to, or give her to Ezra.
I think it's going to be Shin.
Yeah.
So we were looking, we've been speculating for a while, and we've had some folks in the chat in previous live streams where we've theorized, like, okay, what is it that's going to push Shin over the edge? This is one of those things that could definitely do it. So not only is there maybe a little rivalry going on, I won't say a competition, but a bit of a rivalry with Sabine developing here. They've fought a couple times, second time to more of a draw. So, and now your master is also now potentially giving you some sort of preferential treatment and kind of stole your kill in some ways. And for her, that might be meaningful. So definitely getting in the way of Shin's ambition, maybe, for lack of a better word. We still don't know what truly motivates Shin or what her driver is, what she really wants to get out of this. But that doubt we saw a little bit a few episodes ago, and now this, you could definitely see where that tension between them could be starting to grow here in the next couple of episodes.
Mm-hmm. And that what you're speaking to is also the same thing we saw with Maul, right? What does every Sith want to do? Like, what is on their to-do list, their bucket list, their ultimate desire? It's to kill Jedi.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's all they want to do. And this is an opportunity for Shin to prove herself. Maybe this is how she would lose her Padawan braid. I don't know. Like, who knows, right? But I'm with you 100%. Like, I feel like this is another thorn in her side, that the fact that now they brought this person. I mean, she's just being flaunted and taunted now. This is who she wants to kill, and they preserved her, and he's now going to protect her potentially to ensure that she meets her friend. He says, you have my word. You will be reunited with your friend. That's going to happen, folks. And it's probably going to it's going to happen because Baylan's going to allow it to happen, which is going to be contentious, at least.
I'm with you about Morgan Elsbeth, though, because she's just got to be like, dude, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with you? That you are introducing risk to our ultimate plans here.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Why would you do it now? She probably doesn't give her a whole. I mean, at some point you have to give rebels. Rebels are scrappy, right? And they throw wrenches in the cogwheel, and they screw things up. It's what they do. It's what they're good at, right? They're good at just that scrappy attitude.
Yeah.
So why would you bring that to my door? Why would you bring that in my house? Kind of thing.
Exactly.
So I can see where Morgan would be a little pissy about this too.
Yeah. Chris is with us, says Ahsoka is single-handedly bringing back must-see television. I would agree 100% there.
Cannot argue with that at all.
Okay, so this is where Baylan, this is the scene that was all of about 20 seconds, and yet it felt like 20 minutes of her slowly handing over the map, and finally does it. His lines here are just, I mean, every second this guy's on screen, and with every word that he says
engaging, yeah,
is so engaging, so enthralling, so intriguing, and it's so heartbreaking knowing that he's not with us. And man, I was watching an interview today about, they had asked him, like, what do you hope from this series? And he said, I just hope people are able to, I'm paraphrasing, but people are able to connect with this character and appreciate the character. And like, we are doing that, and he's not here to see it. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. But he says it's the only way, which echoes Empire Strikes Back. It is the only way when Vader's talking to Luke. Then he says, do it, which I was like, oh, wait, but we're getting the Revenge of the Sith here reference.
Emperor vibes going
Emperor vibes. But he says, do it. And then he says, for Ezra, though. So that's very clever, I thought. On
just
Dave
like
Filoni's
that. For
part.
Ezra.
For Ezra. Right. He thought I was going to leave it right there and let it go, but no.
You're too young for this reference, but do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she hands over the map, And then he smirks. And I can see where the people would look at this and go, okay, he's a jerk and he's going to do, what we're talking about here. He's going to turn against her. He's really not going to keep his word. I can see that because he did smirk, but I think it was more about like, you made the right choice, kid. Right. More than, I got you. Cause he could have just killed her again right there.
He doesn't seem to have that ego side of him to that. He's out there to accomplish his goal. That is his mode. That is his main motivation and his driver, and he wants people to help him achieve his goal. It's kind of his character in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay, so she's handed over the map, and the Ramsey's direction here is awesome because you're looking at her and you're starting to see her like something's going on with Sabine, and then she falls down, and in the background, right, coming into focus is Shin there using her force choke. So I love that. I thought it was just a great directional choice to do that, and surprises because I was wondering like, what the heck's going on with her? She like eat something bad and it's just now coming up.
Well, I mean, again, when you first do it, you're like, okay, Balin, no, maybe he's not a man of his word because now he's just taking things out, right? Yeah, but Shin comes back in the frame, and again, it just, if anything, reaffirmed like so his behavior of like Shin, let her go, and then he's like, Shin, like, no, for real, do it, type of thing. And
right.
So it was great that he did keep his word. And again, if you need any more signal for who Balin Skoll is, you get it confirmed in spades, in this sequence.
Yeah. He says, Shin, release her. Shin. He says, I gave her my word, and unlike her former master, I shall keep mine. And he's saying that it's so like as a matter of fact, and it's non-negotiable. He says it very non-negotiable, and I can see where people would look at that and say, no, he's just kind of saying that to keep her mind. But no, Dave Filoni wouldn't write that in there. Like, why would you even put that line in there? It's not necessary other than to reaffirm us that he is going to keep his word and do exactly what he said he's going to do.
Well, and he's teaching his student, hopefully to do the same things. I would presume that master and apprentice, he is expecting her to pick up on these habits and these belief systems, right? That's the point of a master, is to show you the right way of doing things. You will clearly learn on your own. You'll make mistakes, but the intent's to help guide you down that right path, right? And so he's saying these very deliberately to continue to kind of brain them into Shin. Like, you don't have to just be this assassin effectively. You can be aggressive, and you can take what you need when you need it, but you don't always have to go and do that. So what's that right balance look like?
Yeah, and unless they're in the way of the mission, let's be clear, right? Going back to the first
that's
scene.
What I'm saying. If you do it willingly, you do it the right way, and that's really the other person doing it the right way from Balin's perspective. But yeah, if you don't, then okay, we'll do what we must, but we gave you the opportunity at the very least. So when we say we're going to do something, we're going to stick to what we're going to do, and we're going to be people of our word.
It's like a mobster mentality, right? Like organized crime mentality. You can play along with the game. Favor. Exactly. Right. You can play along with the game, and so long as you play within the rules, I don't have a problem with you. The minute you step outside that, or you become a risk to me,
then we have a problem.
You're gone. We have a problem. Right. It's exactly what's going on. It's the same kind of mentality.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
From Balin.
Well done.
Well, that's what we're here for. That's why I'm here. Okay, so let's get back to outer space now. Phoenix Squadron is finally arriving. They're checking in with Fulcrum. He says, that they've now taken off to the Eye of the Storm. We get all that stuff right. Calculations are complete. Morgan tells them to go ahead to the ship. Balin destroys the map with his lightsaber, which I was not expecting. It was a very cool effect. I loved it.
Well, and then he looks up and he's like, no one's going to follow us. I mean, what was he looking at? Was he looking at the Purrgil? Was he looking over the... Do you think that he saw Ahsoka die? That was maybe something we kind of grazed over. What do you... Because he did turn relatively soon after she fell, but he was looking. Do you think he... What did he see? I guess in your brain, like, what did he actually see when she fell?
I don't think he saw anything. I think I saw... Well, hold on. I think he saw her fall from a very, very tall height. Right? Because that mountain is pretty tall. There was moments, there were some establishing shots that kind of gave us a scale. And I think we even commented on one where it's like, well, that's kind of cool. It's very pretty the way they framed that. And now I'm thinking, oh, I'm such an idiot. They probably did that so that we had a sense of scale later on, so that there is a risk of somebody falling off. And, we presume. I think that somebody like Balin Skoll may have been able to feel or not feel Ahsoka after that happened. Because in my head, by the way, to jump ahead, in my head, I think she has died or is in the process of dying, but more on that in a little bit.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that.
It might be Sunday mostly. It might be Sunday mostly. Yeah. But, but yeah.
You mean this show will be continuing through Sunday by the time we get to that point? Or what?
Right. But by the time we get there, it'll be at least Sunday morning around 2 a.m. At this rate. Okay, so where was I here? So Balin, he destroys the lightsaber. I love that it took a while to destroy as well. It wasn't just like a cut in half thing. I mean, he made sure nobody was going to find him. He says no one will be following us. And then Sabine looks back as she's being shoved into the shuttle by Shin. And, she's cuffed. She's a prisoner. I think, of course, she's having second thoughts. Is this really what I wanted? And what did I get myself into here? And then we get one of the coolest shots. I would agree with you. That Eye of Sion coming out of the clouds. Like, I mean, they blew most of their budget on that. And, the effects of we haven't talked about the volume much, but I thought they did a really good job of the use of the volume to set that Ahsoka fight. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier on. Like the way that they used the volume in this was just absolutely perfect.
Right. But that did look amazing with the Eye of Sion coming out of the clouds. And we had a shot earlier where it did it, but it wasn't as detailed and we weren't as close up.
And you didn't have the clouds kind of trailing it. It looked very much like the Dreamwork. I wanted to pause it and like put the boy with the fishing pole on it. So it was like the beginning of Shrek or something.
Yep.
That would have been fun.
And then of course Phoenix Squad shows up. We get the lock S foils in attack position. I mean, this is all like, this is the stuff that we love about Star Wars. So I don't know why people are saying, oh, we've already heard that line like 20 times. Yeah, well, 21, and we love it. So keep doing it. It's fine. Right. It's homage to George Lucas. The hyperdrive's engaged, and then this is where Morgan and them walk in. I gotta wonder what's going on in her mind. Like, why did you bring this trash on board? And this isn't going to end well. Like, I wonder at some point, if right after this, if there's not a scene where she's like, jettison her, like, get rid of her. Like, why do you have her? If I were Morgan, I have a lot of questions as to why this dude has brought her on board. Honestly, It makes no freaking sense whatsoever.
Baylor, if you weren't so good at your job, I'd replace you.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we're going to get that scene. Wouldn't that be something? So we get, and I think we talked about it, but just watch Ray Stevenson's eyes when this hyperdrive's firing up and he's just looking around like, what a bunch of this is. I think somebody said it in the chat, talking about how this was kind of insignificant considering the power that he knows is, this is all cool, real fancy stuff, but you guys really have no idea what we're about to go to and what potentially is out there. I love that more than, him just balking at this other tech.
So we did get kind of a unique hyperdrive kind of experience. Was it what you were looking for, or was it?
I think it made sense. Yeah. No, well, so I love this. I love the idea that I knew she was going to say just proceed.
Right.
We got to remember the scale of this thing is like unlike anything we've seen before. Right.
Yeah, it's massive.
That is 6, 7. How many is it? 7.
7 hyperdrives, many
from
of which are
Superstar
destroyers. Yeah.
Right. So not the smaller ones, but the big ones. And we've already speculated on why it's as large, right? Bringing back the Katana fleet or bringing back something. Who knows what this thing can actually do? But I mean, it's just like a semi truck with, going against, I don't know, a little go-kart or whatever it is. It's going to just plow right through it. Like and people are already talking about, oh, well, the hold-on maneuver kind of changed things. And why didn't it end up like that? It's a little bit different, right. I think. And I think you and I were kind of having this conversation, right? That hold-on maneuver was precise timing to ensure that there is a moment where there is something physical leaving into the plane of the hyperdrive or into warp space, right? Hyperdrive space. And she timed it as such that those two kind of came together. This was more, had just left into hyperspace, and the shockwave or the trail, what do they call it? The wake of taking off is what impacted them. So I think it makes sense. I like the idea. Plus you got 7 freaking Super Star Destroyer hyperdrives. Who knows when you got that much power? Folks have said, well, we've never seen it do that before. Why are we seeing it for the first time? We've never had anything of this scale on Star Wars take off into hyperspace, and maybe this is just a byproduct of it. I don't care. I thought it made for really suspenseful stuff. I was like, holy crap, no way. She said to go ahead and go forward with it and do it. Right. What's going to happen to the Ghost? What's going to happen to the X-Wings? We got to see that firsthand. So I loved everything about this, honestly.
I did too, and I thought the wake was unique enough. I think some of the particles that they lasted, and then they did kind of fade. Again, things that we don't normally see. There is something special about this. The speed, the power of it, right? We know the distance matters. It is a very different situation and a different scenario for the Eye of Sion compared to anything else that we've seen in other things. And the Holdo maneuver, I like the way you put it. That was a calculated decision to make that jump and make it a certain way to accomplish that task.
Time it as such, yeah.
Exactly. So that was very intentional for what she was trying to accomplish. They're just trying to get to hyperspace because she can't mess around with this either. She's still like, no, just get us where we need to go. I have no concerns about anything disrupting that path. They can't do any damage to us. And if they did, it would be negligible.
Right.
You know, or at least as far as we know, it probably didn't do any damage. And again, they go into this weird different plane of existence kind of thing too. So it's almost like it disappears. So you're really just dealing with the residual, power of the event, less so than running into the actual, like what Holdo did with actually running your ship through things at light speed. This one was trying to get to the lane. So once it was in the lane, then you're kind of done. But yeah, you have the rest of the residual power of it. That's what wrecked everyone.
Yeah.
The shock wave of sorts. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Ghost is fine. Teva's fine. The Rodian's dead, thank God. And I guess one other X-Wing is still around. So that's all good. I'm sure we're going to get the fallout of that here in the next episode, believe it or not. I know some people have been talking about how this episode's going to be, literally 60 minutes of Ahsoka and Anakin. And I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love that, but that's not realistic. It's just not what Filoni's done in the past either. So,
right.
So I think we're going to get we'll get to kind of understand what happens next. I know some people have also speculated that, how do they even find the Eye of Sion at this point? We have to remember that Chopper did throw that tracker on there. The only thing I would poke holes in that theory about is I have a hard time believing that tech, the tracking tech, is able to transcend another galaxy like that vast amount of space. I think we get with the Wayfinder, right? That's kind of like, force stuff happening that allows you to do that with the Wayfinders. So that makes sense, right? I think that's fair game, but I can't see Chopper's little, nickel-sized tracker being something they're going to be able to pick a signal up on in another galaxy. So although I like the idea, probably not going to happen. I don't think that's what they're going to use. Yeah,
you really got kind of two options. One is a world between worlds. Somehow it would be a different application than what we've seen of it. The other one would be the Purrgil, of course. And the Purrgil probably make the more logical choice of, strap one to the Ghost or whatever and, go out there and do your thing. So that seems to be the more, that's the emotional choice too, right? Because that ties us directly back to the finale of Rebels.
It does. And being able to, I want to see that journey. Like I want to see what that looks like when they fire off into hyperspace, and do we get a different color or different pattern and all of that stuff. So that I want that more than just, we went to the world between worlds. Oh, we're here. That doesn't make for great television in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we get Jason saying, "Mom, I've got a bad feeling." I like the take on the line. It wasn't so on the nose about, I've got a bad feeling about this. It was just that. I think Dave Filoni is signaling that he is force sensitive. Yeah, he felt something, right? And more than just, we were just in a wreck. I think he felt like something dreadful was about to happen, or something. The events were now set in motion, and he was sensing something larger looming was coming because of what had just happened. More than just, I've got a bad feeling because some X-Wings blew up and, Auntie Sabine is gone on holiday kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Something has fundamentally shifted in the Force to where he felt the disturbance.
He could feel it. Yeah. Man, I want him to be trained by Ezra. So I don't know why I felt like I needed to put that out in the universe, but I hope it happens. Okay. So we go back. All right. So here we go. The final scene. I love the transition. Like I wasn't expecting us to kind of go back to see this.
So natural from the waves to the stars. It just so seamless. Yeah.
And it wasn't. So I was on it. I was like, what am I looking at here? Because I saw that, it transitioned over, and then suddenly we're like super zoomed in on Ahsoka, and she had that little translucent thing all around it. And it still hadn't clicked. Honestly, it had not clicked for me. But the minute she made that slight movement and we got the little particles, I'm like, ripple, right. That's it. We're here. We're in the world between worlds. So, I mean, I love the fact that we're there. I love the transition. There's the we get the line of, hello Snips, she turns around, or she says master, and then he says, I didn't expect to see you soon. And of course it's Anakin. We turns around and we can talk about this right now. And again, I want to be clear, like we're already in 2 hours and 9 minutes, and we are going to kind of talk a little bit about this, but I literally have an entire page of notes already on things I want to discuss specifically about this scene. So we are going to do that for the Patreon episode on Sunday. So we got to dedicate
no news,
the time to
all Anakin and Ahsoka.
all Anakin, Ahsoka, and our theories on what in the world is going on here. But I guess if you had to put your bets on any one particular theory, and feel free to chime in on the Vader music playing at the very end.
Yeah,
it says it in the subtitles. And I get it. It's the first couple of notes, but they didn't give us the full Imperial March or the full Imperial, like Vader's theme.
right.
So I don't know. But what are your thoughts, I guess, on, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't want to open this up to a 1 hour conversation, but I guess kind of,
you got to worry about yourself, not with me.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me.
Oh, sorry. So
No, I just meant like,
Well,
I'm worried about myself here.
Let me start with this. So I
right,
love the framing of the shot when you have the dialogue and you have, hello Snips and I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. It's almost the reverse of what we got in Rebels, of the reveal of Ahsoka behind Vader. So if you remember the way that was done on Malachor, you had Vader up front and then it slowly panned and it revealed Ahsoka. Now we have the other way around,
True.
panning around and she turns and reveals Anakin here. So
Yep.
I like the parallels here, and then the other way around, it's like looking in the mirror a little bit. So I thought that was fantastic. That Anakin is here is, I kind of joked that it would be totally appropriate and actually would make me feel so much better about Star Wars if Anakin's punishment for his crimes against the universe and the galaxy,
I knew you were going to go here,
were to be the gatekeeper in purgatory. Like that would just be so fitting. I mean, and there's I'm probably not alone in this either, but just something that said, it's not pure redemption. You do have to, now granted, this is dumb and it's not going to be the case, right?
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but it would be fitting, I think, on some level that Anakin would be, he'd be the gatekeeper in purgatory, that he wouldn't be allowed into the heavenly gates, but maybe given some of the benefits because he did a good thing. I don't know, but so I like that he would maybe fill that role. But this will be very interesting, though. Is it really Anakin? And there's a lot of people speculating about whether it's Anakin or is this Darth Vader that we're looking at. Because we have to remember Darth Vader did not always have armor, right? So that is one way we could do this. Ahsoka was also flirting with a bit of a darker path, maybe not using the Force in darker ways necessarily all the time, although we did have the one hint of this with how'd you get the information on Morgan Elsbeth, of course. But so could this be? But I think the larger narrative of what we're probably going to see here is going to be, it kind of feels like we're going to have like a this is your life Ahsoka thing, but there's got to be a lesson that we're going to learn, right? And who better to give Ahsoka this lesson than Anakin Skywalker, and also be a little of that devil on her shoulder type of thing. We saw this on Lothal too with Yoda kind of semi-guiding with Ezra and Kanan, right? They both had their weird little experiences of, and Yoda to an extent with the priestesses, right? You face your darker self in that way, and it manifests itself in a certain way. And for Ahsoka, it would make so much sense for her darker sense and for all of her trappings to be manifested within her former master, Anakin Skywalker. Now, I mentioned the lightsaber at the beginning of the show. I just can't get a good look at it. I can't tell. Something looks different about it, but I can't really tell what it is. I can't tell if it's just shadows, and that's why
shadows.
it feels. That's what I thought too. But like the middle part clip is just the way the lighting is on it. I'm sure that's all it is. I'm sure all it is. I don't want to belabor it, but
the telltale sign, just quickly, is the way Anakin puts his lightsaber
it's
on,
from the
and
pommel.
Vader. Yes, it's on the pommel.
Vader does it from more of
from the
inner,
opposite.
Yeah.
Right. And so in the way it's hanging, it's his Revenge of the Sith one, not his Vader saber.
Right. It just looks.
I know.
Weird,
I get
my
it.
point. Yeah. The
It's shadows.
color in the shadow is just difficult to tell what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I like that. Anakin's going to be a bit of a spirit guide, which is really interesting because it's not Morai, it's Anakin. But this is going to be one of those opportunities for Ahsoka to be able to finally gain closure in this space between time and everything, where everything is coming together. And who knows what we're going to see. I mean, I think I could see why people will think this might be the whole episode. I'm with you. I don't think episode 5 is going to be only Ahsoka and Anakin. They'd probably get a little bit old after a little while. and we want to know what is going on. We have to stay grounded in the rest of the story. But there is precedence, though, of where they would dwell on one space for a while, though.
For a while. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so it might be the predominant story because, again, this is Ahsoka's story, and this is very important. Her ability to get closure on this is really important, right? This is the one thing you talk about what's holding Sabine back. You know, this is what's holding Ahsoka back, is that constant regret, that constant disappointment in herself, that shame, all of those emotions that come with how she left the Order, how she left Anakin, and whether or not she could have done something different. So we're going to see all of those things play out, I think, and the World Between Worlds is the way to do all of that.
Yeah, I agree. And so what we'll do on Sunday's show is I do want to get into some of the other theories that are out there. And I mean, you look at that scene and there's a lot of things that make you think, make your mind go in a couple different directions. Everything from his outfit, right? Revenge of the Sith versus Return of the Jedi. He doesn't have his mechanical arm, the lightsaber that's come up. You know, we'll get into some of the precedents that's been said about how Force ghosts appear, right?
Wait, someone said he doesn't have a mechanical arm?
Yeah.
How do they know
have
that?
A mechanical arm.
He has his glove on. How do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious how people even know.
Yeah, we'll speculate on it.
Okay. Interesting.
There's, you know, is it Anakin? Is it someone else? I know there's theories about whether it's Vader. You know, is she being tricked here, right? In some way. I do want to get into also, we'll talk about the World Between Worlds again, just kind of as a quick refresher on what that actually means. We'll talk about how, you know, how the World Between Worlds is kind of this place between the cosmic and the living Force, and how Force ghosts or potential Force ghosts could potentially live there, and how he could reappear as this apparition and not look like our typical Force ghosts that we're used to with the blue halo and all that. So I want to get into all of that. I think what I've said on social media, because it's already out there, is that I do believe that she has passed or is in the process of dying, because you got to think about the World Between Worlds. Time is not absolute. Time doesn't work the way it works in the real world. So we could have an entire episode and that could span the course of 4 weeks, right? I'm not saying we're going to have a time jump in the series, but all of that could happen in a fraction of a second, right? And so she snaps up and suddenly she's back on the shore, right? And if they don't do something else with the World Between Worlds. So I do believe that she's passed, and I'm with you. Like, I think it's going to be primarily rooted in getting Ahsoka to come to terms and let go a lot of what she's been holding on to for so long. All of this doom and gloom, the gray Ahsoka, the Ahsoka that seems a bit out of character, that's been through a lot. I think a lot of that is on her shoulders. I think she's holding that, and it's holding her back. And I love the idea that it's Anakin as a Force ghost that is going to take her through these trials. I'm with you 100%, similar to what Yoda went through, and bring her back as someone new. Like, I love the idea of reborn, and it plays into this whole thing with the epilogue of season 4, where in Empire Magazine earlier this year, I think in February or March, Empire Magazine, Dave Filoni said that he reshot the epilogue. And so what we've already seen, and I want to be very clear because I'm fighting people all day long on the internet about this. We've already seen the footage that from the epilogue. What we saw, that is not a different timeline. He even said it himself in the Empire Magazine. It was an opportunity for him to reimagine that scene. And what we got in the epilogue of episode 4 was Filoni showing us the final product, the next level of Ahsoka Tano, which was that Ahsoka the White with the cane. What if you're Dave Filoni and now you've been gifted the opportunity of 8 episodes to tell that story? I think that's what we're going to get. I think we're going to get that journey, and I expect her to come out of this next episode, episode 5, or maybe by the end of the series, as that Ahsoka the White, having now not bearing the responsibility of Anakin's turn or Anakin's death, right? The loss of her master that she's carrying with her. Once she sheds that and she learns how to give and not to give into her fear, much like Yoda, I think she's going to transcend. She's going to be the Ahsoka the White, and we're going to get a different flavor of her, which I think is pretty exciting. And it plays in with, again, what Filoni always wanted to do. He's drew that Ahsoka the White character in so many sketchings, right?
Right.
Sketches. So we know it's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet, and this feels like this is the vehicle.
So next episode is going to be called Return of the Jedi, right? That sounds like pretty appropriate. That actually I would
We can
actually
only
be
speculate.
I would actually be okay with that.
Wouldn't that be something?
You know, yeah, there's a couple things in there. I think one, Ahsoka the White is definitely a thing, and this is how we do it, right? I didn't interpret it that she was dead, because the other part that I could have gone back to would have been that maybe she fell through a portal. Like there is a portal there off that cliff that you don't see, or something to that effect. I think that would be interesting, given that they had the gate open and some of those things were in play there. I think there's another really crazy aspect I was thinking of today too, was of who could Anakin actually be. And I started thinking about Mortis. So maybe we'll save that too, because I think there's some parallels with what Anakin went through with Mortis and the son. And maybe that's happening again here with Ahsoka, kind of paralleling with Ahsoka and the daughter. And there's another aspect here that could play into that too. But the concept of a time jump is interesting, because I've seen this kind of floating around in bits, and I actually kind of like that idea that there would be a lot of time go by, because going to another galaxy takes a lot of time. And so for us to linger here, even if we do get a little bit of stuff going on elsewhere, I don't know that I'm curious if we get Thrawn in episode 5 or if that's an episode 6 type of thing. Kind of feels like maybe it's a 6 or maybe at the very end of 5, depending on how they play this. But my money's probably more of a 6 at this point. But I like the idea of a time jump, because it takes a long time to get out there, and you give that space to Ahsoka here to do the things that she needs to be able to do. And even though it feels like she's been, half an hour, it's really been 4 months or something crazy like that. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's okay. And you can get away with that really easily, because you're in this place that time and distance and everything else don't matter. There's no concept of any of it. All of it is basically. So that's kind of another aspect of it too. But I like the idea it was maybe a portal rather than kind of dying. Although the rebirth, you could still do the rebirth thing too. It doesn't necessarily limit you from that in any kind of case. So I imagine Filoni will probably leave it very ambiguous in that regard.
Yeah. I think for me, what cemented the death was I didn't expect to see you so soon. Like how would he?
Yeah, that is a curious comment. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm anchoring on, honestly. But we're going to get into all that. So we're going to talk about how did she get there? Is that really Anakin? What's the Mortis connection, if any? When will we see Morai? I think that's a question. I want to when we get into the Mortis as well, I want to talk about like the ramifications of we never really got any kind of outcome, or we don't know what came about of the father, son, and the daughter disappearing. Like, what did that do? What kind of void did that leave? And now you've got somebody who has essentially the essence of the daughter, right, entering into the world between worlds, or potentially dying again. What does that do? Like, I want to pull that apart a little bit as well. Want to definitely talk about the trials and what we maybe potentially could see Ahsoka go through, and what she would be trying to let go of as part of those trials. That's in there. We'll talk about the time jump, and then we'll get into all the aspects of Anakin himself. I know there's a lot of discussion about the de-aging, why this particular version. Is he really him? Is it somebody else? Yeah, there's a lot here, honestly. Again, there's a lot of show notes already. So again, that'll be coming on Sunday, but I love where this episode ended. I love the fact that we got the world between worlds. I think we were kind of banking on it for the reputation of the show. I'm kidding. No, but it was kind of obvious. Yeah. I think it was obvious. I think we were. Well, we all knew.
We knew we were coming to it, very, very soon. So
yeah,
this makes
exactly.
a lot of sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what a great way to end, and a great way to start that water cooler talk. And it's just, I mean, we haven't seen Star Wars, the chatter and the banter and the debate and the theorizing and the speculation. I mean, I can't think of a time recently where it's been at this level. It's been a while. I think to me, it feels like it's probably been since The Last Jedi ended, and we were or in between the movies, or maybe at the end of Rise of Skywalker with some aspects of Rise of Skywalker. But this feels like that movie level kind of debate, speculation, and theorizing that's happening right now.
Yeah, without the dumpster fire to go with Last Jedi, like response to it, right? And the fandom imploding, which is really great. I'm with you. It's been a long time since I could actually. None of the TV series, I don't think, have done this, like where they've generated this much enthusiasm and speculation and all the things that you and I love about doing this show. But you get to do it with people who don't normally step into that world, but all of a sudden they're just completely like, what the hell did I just step into? And where have I been? And where has this been my whole life? Is it always this good? Well, it's usually pretty good. Yeah, but this is kind of another level stuff. And we've gotten some really great material too. I mean, Andor was some of the best writing period and storytelling period we've had. But you talk about a single, like when you get your milestone type of episodes, right? This is just one of those that it's difficult to repeat this kind of enrapturing and experience that you get with it and what it inspires in everyone around you.
Yeah, I think Luke and Mando was probably the closest we've gotten in television.
That's probably pretty close. But even this though, with bringing back a dead character though, and it's Anakin flipping Skywalker and
right.
But yeah, you're right. Luke was a really big moment as well. I don't want to overlook that one.
No, but I still think this is at another level even more than that, because we've got Anakin Skywalker on screen, played by Hayden Christensen himself. So, and we know we're set for a whole episode of just those two.
Yeah, in Nowhereville. Like, what is this space place, right? Yeah. And these other guys just went through hyperspace to another galaxy. Like, I mean, what else? What is there not to love? I mean, all this it's craziness right now. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to end the show there. Guys, thank you so much for sticking around. This is like a 2.5 hour show, and most of you, it's been like standing room only pretty much the entire time. So thank you, everybody who came out. Jonesy, I know you want to give shout outs, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to need another 20 minutes to get through this list, so please do. Hey, thanks everyone. Come out, cantinacast.com/YouTube. Please do subscribe and like the channel if you enjoyed what you got tonight. We will try not to do 2.5 hours every time, but hey, sometimes it just warrants it. Thanks especially out to Music Train Alex, Alexandra, My Star Wars Guy, Jack, Sky, Aaron, Danny, Qui-Gon J, Gary, Jorge, 80s from the 90s, Miss Sunflower, Vader's Girl, Skywalker's Academy, Risk, Ben, Hard Counter, Charlie, Dante, Basil G, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Stephanie, Noah, Chris, and obviously Subdued. If I missed anybody, my sincerest apologies. Not intentional. There were a lot of you tonight, so I was trying to keep up. So fantastic conversation, man. A lot of conversation tonight. A lot of great comments up on screen. Please do come out and visit us. We try to highlight all the great comments that we're getting, and it makes for a really interesting chat, and it gives us something else to talk about. So we hope you'll come out and join us sometime.
Yep. And if you guys are interested, again, Sunday will be the Patreon show. If you head out to cantinacast.com/Patreon, you can sign up there. I think $2 gets you in, right? For the
$5 for the video stream. So if you want to do live and get video, it's $5. So We the Republic is the $2 tier. That's if you want the audio. That's all it takes. Yep. But if you want to, and that's about a day later. But if you want to join us on the live stream, it's at that $5 tier. This is the way. Yep.
All right. Very cool. I've got just a quick announcement too. I'm going to tomorrow night around 9 p.m. Central. I'm going to try to let me put this thing. I don't want to do the stupid YouTube promotional thing.
Come on, do the douchey
I'm not
pose.
doing the douche thing. So this is I picked this up. I think you guys have. If you follow us on social media, you already saw it. I'm going to put this together. Start it at least tomorrow at 9 p.m. Super casual, low key. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I'll stream it. If you want to join in, you can watch me put Legos together. I'm happy to answer questions and just kind of have a conversation. Just hang out with whoever wants to join that tomorrow. So that'll be tomorrow 9 p.m. I don't know. We're trying to come up with a non-douchebag title card for it, but I don't think we're going to get around it. So you might see me like this.
Doubling down.
Right, with big font and all that other stuff.
And a big arrow.
The big arrow.
I mean, yeah, much love to all the folks who do that all the time, but it's kind of silly. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It is, right? But the kids love it. It's like,
hey, I guess it gets a click. I guess it gets a click, right? That's what matters. So.
Yep. All right. I guess, is that it? We got everything? Anything else you want to add?
Oh gosh, no. I think whatever else we have, we'll save for another day.
Okay, I'll roll credits. I'll see you tomorrow if you want to join me for the Lego build. Otherwise, we'll see you guys Sunday for the Patreon show and the way station. So we've got some news that happened this week.
Oh, we are going to do the way station. Holy crap.
We're going to do the way station.
How are we going to do all this?
Shh, we'll talk about it later. Okay, we'll see you guys here in just a few.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.